Chapter 100. Saving a life. Sinyan was pleasantly surprised to run into Linny here, but that happiness quickly faded away under the circumstances. She didn't want Lin Yi to get involved because of her. She didn't know the identity of the man and woman, but she could tell that they weren't ordinary people. Sinyan wasn't afraid of them. It wasn't her fault, after all. Even if her father and grandfather found out about it, it wouldn't matter. They'd just give her a scolding and solve the problem. But now that Linny was involved, it'd be troublesome if they went after Lin Yi. Sinyan was just about to say something to Linny when Linny turned away. Linny nodded. No matter what, he'd gotten himself into trouble. He had to think of a way to get Sinyan out of this mess. That Lu Tianyi guy seemed to be a reasonable person, but that Huira woman was still clinging on to Sinyan. Linny turned to look at the old man on the ground. There weren't any signs of injury on the old man, and there weren't any obvious scratches on Sinyan's car either. Sinyan was right. She hadn't run into the old man, but the old man had fallen to the ground on his own. The old man's right hand was clutching his chest, and he was lying on the ground in a weird position. But Lin Yi could tell the cause of the old man's condition after a couple of looks. It was probably due to a heart condition or something, and it wasn't because of a car crash. It was just a coincidence that Sinyan's car was passing by. Lin Yi crouched down and put a hand on the old man's wrist. "What are you doing? Don't move. Are you trying to kill my dad?" Huiru had just calmed down for a moment when she saw Lin Yi touch the old man on the ground. She flared up again, baring her fangs and claws as she charged at Lin Yi. "Myocardial ischemia? Angina?" Lin Yi raised his head with a frown. "Huiru, stop fooling around." Lu Tianyi's eyes lit up when he heard Lin Yi's words. He pulled his wife aside and his face was filled with anticipation. He was not stupid. Lin Yi had only taken his pulse and told him the cause of his father's illness. Lu Tianyi naturally regarded Lin Yi as a doctor. "Little brother, are you a doctor?" Lin Yi didn't answer Lu Tianyi's question directly. "Your father fell to the ground because of angina caused by myocardial ischemia. It wasn't her car that hit him." "Nonsense." Huiru's expression changed as she pointed at Lin Yi and scolded him. "Fine. I'll take it as bullsh** ting. With the speed of the ambulance, your father can only wait for death." Lin Yi pursed his lips and stood up. "Anyway, he's dead. There's a forensic doctor, so it has nothing to do with my friend." Slap. Lu Tianyi slapped Huiru's face. "Shut up, you be **tisich. If it wasn't for the fact that you were so focused on putting on makeup and forgot to bring Dad's medicine, would Dad have ended up like this? You dare to hit me?" Huiru's eyes were filled with disbelief. Her husband had been a coward in front of her for most of his life. She didn't expect him to slap her in public today. Lu Tianyi ignored his wife and turned to look at Lin Yi sincerely. "Little brother, do you have a way to save my father?" "Yes, you must have a way. My lover is like this. Please don't take it to heart. I hope you can help." Lu Tianyi wasn't a reckless man. Lin Yi was young, but being able to pinpoint the cause of his father's illness with a single sentence was no simple feat. His father didn't have any medicine at the moment, and whether or not he could make it to the ambulance was another matter altogether. Lu Tianyi had no choice but to try his luck. He wouldn't let that sliver of hope go. Lin Yi looked at Lu Tianyi, thinking that the guy was quite sincere. The slap he'd just given his wife was quite manly as well. "I'll try." Lin Yi nodded slowly. The old man's death wouldn't have anything to do with Wang Xinyan, but judging from the shrew's attitude, there'd be a lot of trouble in the future. The only way to get Wang Xinyan out of this trouble was to keep the old man alive. Lin Yi crouched down and rubbed a few spots on the old man's body in a seemingly random manner. He then started massaging the area around the old man's hearts. This acupuncture and massage technique was something he'd inherited from his Shifu, and it was good for blood circulation. Lin Yi didn't know if it would work on this old man. Perhaps his Shifu wouldn't have thought that the acupuncture technique he'd taught him was for killing people, but he'd be using it to save people. It'd be great if he had silver needles. His old man's medical skills were amazing, after all, and he'd taught Lin Yi acupuncture, but his main business was killing people, not saving them. He didn't have a box of needles with him. "Kid, it's futile if you keep massaging him like this. He's already half dead. He'll die before your massage works." Zhao Yazi's disdainful voice entered Lin Yi's ears all of a sudden. "Zhao Lao, you have a solution?" Lin Yi was overjoyed. In truth, Lin Yi was a little worried as well. Old Lin's medical skills were excellent, but there were a lot of emergency treatments that required needles, and it depended on the symptom as well. Lin Yi would have been able to save the old man if he'd only just started acting up, but it had been half a day now, and Lin Yi had no choice but to give it a shot. You've been practicing the art of dragon slaying for nothing, haven't you? Zhao Yazi humphed coldly. You only need to take a small amount of the energy you absorbed and put it into the old man's heart, allowing it to recover and strengthen its blood supply. You'll be able to improve his condition. Put it in directly? Lin Yi was dumbfounded. This was something he'd never thought of. He'd thought that the energy he absorbed was only useful to him because he practiced the art of dragon slaying, and this energy was useless to others. He hasn't practiced the art of dragon slaying, so will this energy be effective on him? Lin Yi knew that this kind of energy had a very significant effect on strengthening the body's tissues and functions, but would it be of any use without the Kunlun chant? He hasn't practiced it, so he can't absorb the energy himself, but he can receive the energy you give him. Zhao Yazi explained, Kid, don't tell me you don't even understand such a simple principle? Lin Yi's face reddened. He really didn't understand this. Old Lin didn't know the art of dragon slaying either, and he'd been practicing it all by himself without anyone to discuss it with. Run the chant on this old man's Dayton acupoint, and the energy will be automatically released and transferred to him, Zhao Yazi said. If you don't want him to die, then hurry up and start. Chapter 101. Cultivation can save lives. All this time, Lin Yi had thought that the art of dragon mastery would only improve his own body, but he'd never thought that it could be used on others as well. But since Zhao Yazi had said so, then there was no problem. Lin Yi took a deep breath and pressed his right hand on the old man's Dun acupoint. He began to practice the basic chant of the art of dragon mastery. All of a sudden, a strong suction came from the old man's Dun acupoint, and all the energy in Lin Yi's body flowed out like a flood into the old man's body. Lin Yi was startled. Could this be the absorbing stars technique? But it was only for a moment, and the energy in Lin Yi's body stopped decreasing. The energy that had been released from his body was just a drop in the ocean, and it didn't affect Lin Yi at all. He could feel the old man's heartbeat slowly returning to normal, and his face turning pale and rosy. The old man's ragged breathing slowed down as well. That's it? Lin Yi hadn't expected the art of dragon mastery to have such an effect. Lin Yi, kid, you're dreaming, right? This is just recovery. You'll need at least 3 to 4 levels of strength if you want a full recovery. I've studied the first stage of the art of dragon mastery, and it's only good for strengthening the body. It's far from being able to heal wounds. Zhao Lao's voice sounded in Lin Yi's ear. So that's how it is. Lin Yi wasn't surprised or disappointed. If Zhao Yazi had said that the first stage of the art of dragon mastery could bring back the dying, Lin Yi would have been shocked instead. If the first stage was already like this, wouldn't he become a god in the future? Hubby, look at Dad's complexion. He's better. He's really better. His breathing's normal now. Huiru pointed at the old man on the ground, exclaiming excitedly, Tianyi pushed his wife away, pissed off. She'd been so rude to Lin Yi just a while ago, and now she was acting like this again. It was said that women flipped their faces faster than the pages of a book, and his wife was the perfect example. Little brother, how's my father? There's no problem this time, Lin Yi said faintly. You don't have to go to the hospital. You should wake up soon. Really? Lu Tianyi heaved a sigh of relief when he heard Lin Yi's words and thanked him profusely. If it weren't for Lin Yi, his father's illness would have suddenly flared up this time. Previously, when his father was lying on the ground, before the ambulance arrived, Lu Tianyi did not dare to touch him, fearing that something worse would happen. Now that Lin Yi said that his father was fine, he quickly crouched down and helped the old man up. The old man had opened his eyes at this point, breathing heavily as he spoke to Lu Tianyi weakly. Help me up, Dad. Let me help you. Huiru walked over obediently, reaching out to help the old man up. However, the old man snorted coldly and shook off Huiru's hand. The old man had fallen to the ground in pain, but he hadn't fainted. He could still hear what was going on in the outside world, and the way Huiru had slandered Wang Xinyan had irritated him greatly. Dad, Huiru wanted to say something, but Lu Tianyi stopped her with a glare. Dad, what are you doing? Lu Tianyi asked as he helped his father up. His father was walking towards Lin Yi. Help me to thank this little friend. The old man knew very well who had saved him. Lin Yi had a good impression of the old man after seeing how sincere he was. As for the old man calling him a little friend, Lin Yi, naturally, didn't mind. The old man was about the same age as Lin Yi. After all, it was normal for him to call him a little friend. No need to be so courteous, old man. I was just passing by. Lin Yi smiled. Good, good. The old man's complexion had recovered quite a bit. The pain was only temporary, and he'd be back to normal once he recovered. You saved this old man's life, but you're not arrogant or rash. Good, Tianyi. Remember this little friend's phone number? You must thank him for today. Yes, Dad. Lu Tianyi turned to look at Lin Yi. Lin Yi had heard his father's words as well, so Lu Tianyi didn't have to repeat them. There's no need to thank me. I just want my friend to leave, Lin Yi said faintly. Lin Yi didn't really care about that. Lin Yi was a young man with a high salary now, and he didn't lack money. The main reason he'd helped was to get Xinyan out of trouble. Lu Tianyi's face reddened at Lin Yi's words. He glared at Huiru again before turning to Lin Yi. Little brother, I'm really sorry, but don't lower yourself to a woman's level. This has nothing to do with your friend. She can leave anytime she wants. Haha, Lin Yi smiled. Old man, there's no need for that. I'll be leaving if there's nothing else. Take care of yourself. Good job, young man. The old man, on the other hand, looked at Lin Yi with admiration. Just looking at your little girlfriend's car, this old man knows that you're not someone who needs money. How about this? I'll cut to the chase. Tianyi, give this kid my private number. Young man, give me a call when you get the chance to visit Yinjing. I'll take care of you myself. All right. Lin Yi nodded and didn't decline anymore. Since it was the old man's sincerity, Lin Yi naturally wouldn't reject it. As for going to Yinjing, haha, he'd been there before, but would he have the time to play? But the old man's words shocked Lu Tianyi. When had his father ever been so approachable? Especially to an unfamiliar junior? Even if he'd saved his father's life, there was no need for him to do this, was there? However, since his father had asked him to do this, he didn't raise any objections. He took out his business card and quickly wrote his father's number in the blank space behind it before handing it to Lin Yi. Lin Yi took the business card and stuffed it into his pocket without looking at it. The old man wasn't dissatisfied, but Lu Tianyi secretly shook his head. How many people wanted his father's number but couldn't get it? At this time, the sound of an ambulance finally came from afar. Actually, it had only been 20 minutes since the incident had happened. The ambulance had driven from the hospital to the downtown area, which was considered fast. Dad, the ambulance is here. Let's go to the hospital for a checkup. Lu Tianyi had also heard the sound of the ambulance and carefully said to the old man. Chapter 102. Lu Tianyi had no choice but to give up after hearing his father's words. The crowd, on the other hand, saw that there was nothing left to see and began to disperse as they talked about Lin Yi's miracle. Lin Yi, on the other hand, quickly left the place with the crowd. Wait! Xinyan's voice came from behind him before he could take more than a few steps. What's wrong? Lin Yi looked at Xinyan before pointing at the car not far behind her. You're not allowed to park here. Aren't you afraid of getting a ticket? Xinyan blinked, not expecting Lin Yi to say something like that. She chuckled. Thanks for today. I didn't expect you to know medicine. It's just a normal Eastern massage. You can do it too if you buy a book from Xinhua bookstore. Lin Yi, naturally, wasn't going to expose himself. Ugh. Xinyan wasn't expecting it to be that easy, but thinking back to what Lin Yi had done, it really did look like an Eastern massage. She nodded. Still, thank you for today, though. It would have been really hard to get away otherwise. That woman was being unreasonable, that's all. Lin Yi smiled. I didn't think I'd run into you here. I haven't thanked you for last time, so let's call it even now. Call it even. Xinyan frowned. She'd finally mustered up the courage to invite Lin Yi for a meal to thank him, but Lin Yi had already put it that way. She wasn't going to bring it up as a girl. Be careful next time, and try not to go to crowded places. Lin Yi nodded. I came with a friend today. I'll head over first. Ah, all right. Xinyan nodded. A little disappointed, she didn't have her family with her today, so she didn't have to worry about anything. Lin Yi just had to have something to do. It was a little disappointing. Xinyan was very curious about Lin Yi. She couldn't figure out what had happened on the train. She'd been thinking about it for a few days, but she still couldn't figure out when Lin Yi had gotten the money back. He'd been sitting beside her the whole time, and she should have been able to sense anything if he'd made a move, but she hadn't been able to sense anything. What happened today made Lin Yi even more of a miracle. He was a young man who knew Eastern massage, and seemed to be quite good at it too. That grandpa wouldn't have recovered otherwise. What a strange person. Xinyan sighed as she watched Lin Yi leave. She turned around and walked back to her car. If he hadn't come out with Meng Yao and Yushu, he really would have wanted to spend more time with Xinyan. But the situation was different. Wouldn't the Chu girl explode if she saw him shopping with another pretty girl? He was here to carry her bags. After all, Lin Yi knew his place. Where are you guys? Lin Yi took out his phone and sent Yushu a text. It wasn't long before a reply came. Pengzhan Department Store, 3rd floor, *** area. Ugh. Lin Yi sweated as he looked at the text. *** area? But wasn't this Pengzhan Department Store part of Pengzhan's business? The miss was visiting incognito? Lin Yi shook his head as he looked left and right. It wasn't long before he found the Pengzhan Department Store sign. He walked over quickly. The department store was quite sizable, and there were quite a number of brands inside. Some were international, some were domestic, but they were all high-end brands. There weren't even many mid-range brands. Lin Yi took the elevator up to the 3rd floor. It was a good thing that the 3rd floor wasn't just selling sex toys. There were also bedding and the like. Lin Yi sent Yushu a text telling her that he'd arrived. He waited for a while, but Yushu didn't reply. Lin Yi didn't think much of it. He thought that she was trying out her *** when someone called out, "Shield bro, over here." Lin Yi raised his head subconsciously to see Yushu waving at him from afar. But what was that in her hand? It looked like a *** black ***. Lin Yi sweated. Only a weirdo like Yushu could do something like that, right? Lin Yi walked towards Yushu under everyone's shocked gazes. Lin Yi was too shameless to care about stuff like that. He'd even put on a trap for his mission back in the day. Lin Yi wasn't afraid of anything. Yushu was a little embarrassed to see Lin Yi walk over like that, but she quickly put away the *** she just bought when she saw the weird looks everyone was giving her. Even Meng Yao moved to the side as if she didn't know Lin Yi. Yushu was embarrassed. She didn't think too much about it. It was just a joke with Lin Yi, but she didn't think it'd cause such a huge reaction. "Shu, you're so embarrassing." Meng Yao's face darkened as she glared at Yushu. "How could you do that? Yao Yao, I didn't know everyone would be looking at us," Yushu said, feeling wronged as well. Fortunately, the people here weren't just there to watch the commotion. They only looked at Yushu for a while before going back to their own business. Lin Yi walked over to Yushu, her face still red. Lin Yi found it a little funny. "Are you guys done? Do you need me to carry anything?" "We're not even there yet. It's still early." Meng Yao thought back to how Lin Yi had gone to help a pretty girl deal with a *** accident for no reason. She got a little pissed. "Hold these *** for me." Wah. Lin Yi froze. Holding the ***? Lin Yi was a thick-skinned guy, but holding a *** behind two pretty girls like that wasn't a pretty sight, was it? However, Lin Yi let out a sigh of relief when Meng Yao handed the bag over. Other than the *** brand, there wasn't anything special about it. "Where's yours?" Lin Yi turned to Yushu after taking Meng Yao's bag. "Here." Yushu had already put the *** into the bag and passed it to Lin Yi, and so, Shield Bro followed the two girls from afar. When the two returned, Lin Yi had more than 10 bags in his hands. Meng Yao suddenly remembered something. "Lin Yi, you haven't bought any clothes yet?" "Me? Isn't this good?" Lin Yi didn't really care. "It's fine if you don't buy it. I have to. People will think that Shu and I are students if you wear a school uniform," Meng Yao said firmly. Chapter 103. Fried mushrooms and gutter oil. Meng Yao's eyes lit up at the sight of Lin Yi walking out of the fitting room. Her impression of Lin Yi had changed quite a while ago. and Linny looked a lot more handsome in his school uniform than when he was a laborer. However, Linny looked even more handsome in his casual clothes. Humph. She hadn't expected this guy to be this handsome. No wonder he was so popular with girls. Even Lingshan was trying to get close to him. She shouldn't have asked him to buy it if she'd known. Mengyao thought, a little conflicted. Wow. Yao Yao, look at how handsome Shield Bro is. He's more than enough to be your Shield Bro. I guarantee it. Yushu was quite surprised at Lin Yi's change as well. It seemed that clothes made the man, and bark made the tree. How about it? Lin Yi picked out 2 casual outfits. He didn't think it'd look right for him to follow the 2 misses in a suit. He'd look like a hired thug if he were to wear one. So ugly, Mengyao said with a yawn as she looked at Lin Yi with sleepy eyes. Haha. Lin Yi smiled as he looked at Yushu. What do you think? Yushu looked at Mengyao, a little troubled. She felt a little guilty all of a sudden. I guess. All right then, Lin Yi said as he took out the card Faubert gave him. I'll do it. I told you I'd buy it for you, Mengyao said, getting up from her chair and going to the counter. Lin Yi shrugged. There was no need to fight Mengyao if she insisted. This wasn't the time to be a gentleman, after all. The money in his card was from Pengzhan, and the money in Mengyao's card was from Pengzhan. The two were essentially the same, and it didn't matter whose card he swiped. We're done. Is there anything else you want? Mengyao asked Lin Yi after swiping her card. I'd like to get a laptop, Lin Yi said after some thought. Oh, a laptop. Shoo, I thought you didn't have a laptop in your house anymore. Why don't you get Lin Yi to use it? Mengyao was a little tired. There weren't any laptops in the mall, and they'd have to walk quite a distance to get one. Sure. Yushu didn't really care. Computers were the type of thing that got replaced pretty quickly anyway. She was staying at Mengyao's house for the time being, and she'd probably get a new one when she moved back home. She might as well give the computer to Lin Yi for now. Lin Yi didn't have any objections since both Mengyao and Yushu said so. The 3 left the mall together, and Lin Yi looked at the long line of cars in front of the parking lot. Mengyao wasn't a bad person. She wasn't afraid of getting a ticket, but with her status, all she had to do was call Faubert in advance. Even if the manager of the mall didn't want to park, he'd have to give her a parking spot. Mengyao looked at the parking lot and gave the keys to Lin Yi. You're in charge of getting the car here. Lin Yi smiled bitterly as he took the keys. Neither of the cars had left, and Mengyao wouldn't be able to move the car out of the parking lot. But it wasn't a problem for Lin Yi. He got in the car with the keys, and after a couple of shifts, the car was out. Lin Yi got out of the car and sat in the back seat. Mengyao was a little pissed. You want me to be your driver? But I really don't have a license, Lin Yi said helplessly. What if I get detained for 15 days? Mengyao was speechless. Who'd dare detain you if you and Lingshan had that kind of relationship? She didn't say anything, though. She got into the driver's seat and started the car. Yao Yao, are we still going for fried mushrooms today? There was a food street not too far away from the business street, and there were a lot of food stalls there at night. The 2 of them had gone there the last time they went shopping, and Yushu couldn't help but drool at a fried mushroom stall every time she thought about it. Mengyao was just about to say sure when she remembered Lin Yi in the back seat. She turned around. Hey, are you coming or not? I'll leave you at home if you're not. Of course, it's just eating, right? I'm good at it. Lin Yi nodded seriously. Mengyao didn't know what to say. There were all sorts of things in this world, but she'd never seen anyone boast about being an expert in eating like this. Mengyao wanted to ask if this guy was good at taking a shit as well, other than eating. But that wasn't a pretty word, and Mengyao didn't say it out loud since she was a girl. Ha, Shield Bro, we're really kindred spirits. I'm good at it too, Yushu said excitedly, as if it was fate. Mengyao didn't know what to say. How embarrassing. It was too embarrassing. I like fried mushrooms. What about you? Yushu didn't see the look on Mengyao's face as she chatted excitedly with Lin Yi. I like fried chicken, Lin Yi said. Ahem. Mengyao couldn't take it anymore. Haven't you guys heard of gutter oil? Yeah. Yao Yao, but what does gutter oil have to do with fried mushrooms? Yushu asked, dumbfounded. Ugh. Mengyao floored the gas pedal, and the S5 shot out. This was the only way she could vent her frustration. She was completely defeated. Lin Yi was a little puzzled. Yushu didn't seem like such an idiot. did she? Why didn't she know the connection between gutter oil and fried mushrooms? But Lin Yi understood that the girl was doing it on purpose when he saw that faint smile on her lips. There wasn't a parking spot on the street, and there were quite a few cars parked there as well. Mingyao frowned. Finding a parking spot was the most annoying thing to her every time she went out. The number of private cars in Songshan had been increasing at an alarming rate for the past 2 years, and what depressed Mingyao the most was the sudden increase in the number of private cars after she got her license. Stop, Mingyao said to Lin Yi after getting out of the car. I'll go eat with Shu. You buy whatever you want. Don't worry about us. Chapter 104. Meeting Tang Yun again. Lin Yi leaned against the Audi S5 as he got out of the car, enjoying the bustling scene of the food street. How long has it been since I've enjoyed a life like this? Lin Yi sighed at the comfort he had right now. In the past, there was only work and work. Even when he passed by a food street like this, it was mainly to fill his stomach. How could he have the leisure to enjoy the scenery? Phew. The air here was mixed with the smell of cooking oil from the food stalls, as well as the smell of rotten vegetables. It wasn't as fresh as the air in the mountains, but the smell of the market made Lin Yi yearn for it. When would the day come when he could also be like these ordinary people, shopping and eating snacks? How comfortable would his life be? Lin Yi stretched and opened his eyes. Ugh. Lin Yi realized, to his surprise, that there was a mother and daughter walking in his direction. They were pushing a tricycle with a barbecue rack and some chairs and tables on it. Who else could it be if not Tang Yun and her mother? Tang Yun obviously saw Lin Yi as well, but a trace of disdain flashed in her eyes. She turned her head away, not looking at him. Tang Yun's mother, on the other hand, didn't see Lin Yi as she continued talking to Tang Yun. It was only then that Lin Yi realized that his posture was a little suggestive. He was leaning against the Audi S5, facing Tang Yun's direction. The luxurious sports car, the elegant yet lazy posture. It really did look like one of those rich young masters trying to act cool in front of a poor girl. But Lin Yi was innocent. Lin Yi really didn't have the intention to show off in front of Tang Yun. He was just sighing about life by the side of the car, and coincidentally, Tang Yun saw him. Lin Yi rubbed his chin awkwardly as he left the car. Tang Yun and her mother had pushed the barbecue cart over. Lin Yi thought that he should at least greet her since he saw her, right? Hello, Auntie. Lin Yi scratched his head, a little embarrassed as he greeted Mrs. Tang. She was an elder, after all, and he couldn't just turn around and leave now that he'd seen her. You're... Mrs. Tang paused as she looked at Lin Yi. He was wearing the casual clothes he'd just bought, and he was standing next to the sports car. Mrs. Tang didn't recognize him right away. It's me, Lin Yi. I ate at your barbecue stall with my classmates yesterday, Lin Yi explained. Oh, it's you. I remember now. Mrs. Tang looked at Lin Yi, a little surprised. She knew that Lin Yi was strong in school yesterday, one of the big four. Even Zhou Ruoming was afraid of him, but it wasn't until today that she realized that Lin Yi's family wasn't normal. She didn't know how much the car was worth, but it didn't look cheap. Plus, Lin Yi was dressed casually today, much more handsome than yesterday. Mrs. Tang had a good impression of him. Why didn't you greet your classmate? Humph. Tang Yun felt wronged by her mother's words. She raised her head and looked at Lin Yi. Why was this person so thick-skinned? She didn't know where he found out that she and her mother were going to have a stall at the food street on the weekend, but he came here early to wait for her. What are you doing here? I'm here to eat. Lin Yi smiled bitterly as he looked at Tang Yun. How can you talk to your classmate like that? Mrs. Tang wasn't happy with her daughter's attitude. Not only did Lin Yi help Tang Yun out yesterday, he even helped her recoup her losses. From now on, she would be able to set up a stall near the school, and it seemed like she wouldn't be bullied by the students anymore. Mrs. Tang was very grateful towards Lin Yi, but seeing that her daughter wasn't getting along with Lin Yi made her a little angry. He's here to eat. What else could he be doing? Tang Yun felt wronged by her mother's scolding. She glared at Lin Yi and stubbornly turned around, ignoring Lin Yi. This child. Mr. Lin, please don't take it to heart. Mrs. Tang explained to Lin Yi, embarrassed. Now that Lin Yi's identity had changed, Mrs. Tang's way of addressing Lin Yi had also changed. It's okay, Auntie, just call me Lin Yi. Lin Yi sweated. He didn't think that Tang Yun would have such a personality. He hoped that she could maintain her personality. It wasn't easy for a girl born in a family like this to maintain a little bit of pride and self-esteem. This made Linny have a good impression of Tang Yun. Mrs. Tang was clearly helpless towards her daughter. After saying a few words to Lin Yi, she pushed the cart with Tang Yun into the food street. Lin Yi shook his head and followed from afar. He didn't get too close, in case Tang Yun accused him of following her. Lin Yi bought 2 skewers of fried chicken and stuffed them into his mouth. This was an authentic street food that Lin Yi rarely had the chance to eat. He'd already forgotten how long it had been since he'd last eaten fried chicken. Lin Yi watched as Mrs. Tang and Mrs. Tang set up a stall and started a fire. He didn't want to go over to them. Mrs. Tang's barbecue skills were pretty good, but Lin Yi didn't want to get glared at by Tang Yun. While they weren't paying attention, Lin Yi quickly made his way over and saw Meng Yao and Yu Shu at the end of the street. The two were sitting in front of a Shangxi Liangpi stall, eating a bowl of Liangpi together. The bowl was red. Evidently a lot of chili had been put into it. Meng Yao took 2 bites, sticking her tongue out and fanning herself with her hand. It looked like she couldn't handle the spiciness. Yu Shu, on the other hand, was eating and drinking at the same time. Lin Yi calmed down after seeing that they were fine. He didn't want them to be embarrassed to eat again. They didn't know anyone here, so they were quite relaxed. Their table manners were a lot more aggressive than when they were at home. "Boss, give me a bowl of wonton noodles," Lin Yi called out as he sat in front of a Zhang Ji wonton noodle stall, not too far away. "Sure, bro." The boss responded with a smile when he saw a customer and went to make the wonton for Lin Yi. Lin Yi felt that none of the other street food could fill him up as much as this wonton noodle. After a few random snacks, Lin Yi decided to have a bowl of wonton noodles. Lin Yi's eyes followed Meng Yao and Yu Shu from the corner of his eyes as he ate the wonton noodles. The two came to a stall selling fried mushrooms. Yu Shu seemed to want to eat it, but Meng Yao didn't want to. The two argued for a bit, and Meng Yao eventually sat down with Yu Shu. Chapter 105. The Master of Haggling. There was a night market in front of the food street. It was a night market, but there were still a lot of stalls set up during the day. It was just as lively as the food street here. Lin Yi didn't have much to do, and Meng Yao and Yu Shu were enjoying their food. He walked over to the night market. Lin Yi preferred the clothes from the street stalls compared to the expensive branded clothes from the malls. As long as one had good eyes and knew how to haggle, they could buy fashionable clothes from the street stalls. Lin Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry at the familiar silhouette in front of him. It seemed like fate had brought them together. Lin Yi walked over to Tang Yin, who was squatting in front of a stall selling girls' clothes. She was holding a dress in her hands, looking like she really liked it. Can you lower the price a little?" Tang Yin asked after some hesitation. "Little girl, look. These are all top-notch fabrics. Look at the workmanship, there's nothing to say. This style is also the most popular this year. If you put it in Pengzhan department store, you won't be able to get it for less than 1,000. The stall owner talked leisurely as if his goods were the best in the world. It was obvious that Tang Yin wasn't good at haggling. "But 200 is a little too expensive." "It's not expensive. Look at the prices of everything these days, the fabric, the labor. It's more than 200. 200 is the price I used to pay before. And now that the price has gone up, I'll have to raise the price in the future." The stall owner continued praising his goods. I'm from the food street over there. Can you lower it a little? I'll buy it a little cheaper." Tang Yin gritted her teeth as she revealed her identity. "Oh, you're from the food street?" The stall owner looked at Tang Yin. "You're from the food street over there, so you should know better. I'm making a small profit, but quick turnover. How much can we earn from selling things in the night market? There's so many stalls here. Who's going to raise the price for who? Plus, we have to pay taxes and management fees every day. There's not much left." Tang Yun looked at the stall owner weakly. She'd already said that, so why didn't he say anything cheap? Could it be that he saw that I liked this dress, so he didn't give in? This person was really hateful. Lin Yi shook his head. With Tang Yun's way of haggling, it would be strange if she could kill them. Perhaps he would have to help her out. Tang Yun's family situation wasn't very good, and he could tell that. It would be best if he could save some money for her. "Hey bro, you're setting up a stall here?" Linny walked over and patted the stall owner's shoulder enthusiastically. Huh, you are. The stall owner looked at Linny in confusion. He didn't know who Linny was. Have you forgotten about me? The first year, we were selling goods together at Old Zhang's place. Linny said with a smile. I used to set up a stall at the night market on the south side of the bridge. Oh. The stall owner listened to Lin Yi's words and nodded in realization. So it's you, little bro. I was wondering why you looked so familiar. How is it? How's business recently? Hey, don't mention it. Your sister-in-law is pregnant. I'm taking care of her at home. I don't have time to set up a stall. It wasn't easy for my sister to come over these past 2 days, so I took some time out to walk around, Linny said as he squatted down in front of the stall. Tang Yun looked at Lin Yi chatting with the stall owner, stunned. When did he set up a stall at the south side of the bridge? When did he get a wife? She's pregnant? Wasn't he in school? Hey, pregnancy is a good thing. Congratulations. The stall owner nodded at Lin Yi and congratulated him. In fact, he didn't even remember where he'd seen Lin Yi before. Who knew which old Zhang was? He had so many places to sell goods. There were at least 3 to 5 people with the surname Zhang. However, Lin Yi was so familiar with him, and they were in the same trade. It was obvious that they'd met before. He didn't remember him. The stall owner was a bit embarrassed, but he couldn't say it out loud. He could only pretend to suddenly remember and chat with Lin Yi. Hey, don't mention it. My wife loves to look pretty. She even wants me to buy things for her when she's pregnant, Lin Yi said. She wants me to buy some makeup and clothes for the summer. I was going to Old Zhang's place, but I bumped into you. I'll just pick 2 from your stall. No problem, the stall owner said enthusiastically. You still have a long way to go to the wholesale market. Just pick 2 from here. We can't take your money. We all know how much these things cost. Okay, then I'll pick 2, Linny said as he picked up the dress Tang Yun was looking at, and then picked a pair of men's shorts to wear. After choosing, he said to the stall owner, I'll take these 2. Oh, the stall owner looked at it and said, that dress is 45 yuan. That pair of shorts is 12 yuan. A total of 57 yuan. I'll give you 60 yuan. I still have the fare to go to the wholesale market. I can't let you come for free. Linny took out 60 yuan from his pocket and handed it to the stall owner. How can I do that? We're in the same trade. The stall owner waved his hand. It's a small business. Sister-in-law is pregnant. It's embarrassing enough that I didn't give her a gift. How can I make money? Haha, bro, if you do that, I won't dare to come next time. 60 it is. Is that okay? Lin Yi waved his hand, pretending to be angry. Okay, 60 it is. The stall owner smiled and took the money. Bro, you're honest? I won't say anything else next time you come. Let's have a drink or 2. No problem. Linny nodded and stood up. Bro, I'll be leaving first. Tang Yun watched as Lin Yi bought her favorite dress. She was shocked, speechless. 45 yuan? What was wrong with him? This stall owner was too greedy, wasn't he? He sold it to her for 200 yuan. She could buy 4 pieces. Tang Yun thought angrily. Right, what did you want to buy? The stall owner sent Lin Yi away with a smile, then remembered that there was a buyer here, so he asked, that dress just now, do you still have it? Tang Yun asked. No, that's the only one. The stall owner shook his head. Then why did you sell it to him for 45 and me for 200? Tang Yun couldn't help but ask. This stall owner was too dishonest. He's in the same trade. I'm willing to sell it to him for 45. What's wrong? Can I? The stall owner saw that Tang Yun was dawdling for a long time. He was getting impatient. If it wasn't for the fact that she was pretty, he would have ignored her already. Him? He's in the same trade as you? Tang Yun looked at the stall owner strangely. Yes, why? Are you buying it or not? The stall owner frowned, wondering why this little girl was so troublesome. She didn't want to buy anything, yet she kept asking questions here and there. It would be a misunderstanding when his wife came back later. Chapter 106. Who said anything about giving it to you? Lin Yi's sudden action had left Tang Yun dumbfounded. Had Lin Yi set up a street stall before? He'd been driving a sports car when she saw him, hadn't he? Why would he set up a stall? Plus, he was a high schooler just like her. How could a student get married? His wife was pregnant? Tang Yun rubbed her eyes. Was it because she'd been too tired these past 2 days, and this Linny was too much of a jerk that she was hallucinating? How else could she have bumped into Linny in a place like this? But no matter what, it didn't matter if that person was Lin Yi or not. Tang Yun still felt that he was a jerk. She'd set her eyes on the dress first, but he'd bought it before she could discuss the price. Damn it. Tang Yun lowered her head and walked towards the food street. She'd finally made up her mind to buy 2 new sets of clothes. But, Tang Yun took 2 steps and almost bumped into someone in front of her. She jumped back subconsciously and looked up to see Lin Yi standing in front of her with a smile on his face. You, what are you doing here? Trying to scare me? Here's the dress. Lin Yi handed the dress to Tang Yun. You're not buying it for your wife? Tang Yun frowned, not understanding what Lin Yi was getting at. Haha, it's just a way to haggle. I don't have a wife. I'm just trying to get the price out of him. Lin Yi shrugged. You don't know how to haggle, and I'm afraid that someone's going to rip you off. Oh, Tang Yun finally understood why Lin Yi was talking like that. It was just a haggle. So, his intention in buying this dress is to give it to me? Tang Yun grew more and more annoyed at the thought of that possibility. Of course, she wouldn't accept the dress Lin Yi had given her. If she'd wanted it, she'd only need to open her mouth and there'd be a lot of boys fighting over it. But she didn't like it. Here, take it. Lin Yi gave the dress to Tang Yun. I don't want your things. You can go back. Tang Yun dodged and said coldly, Who said I'm giving it to you? Give me the money. Lin Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. 45. HM? Tang Yun froze. She didn't expect Lin Yi to ask her for money all of a sudden. Didn't he want to please her and buy it for her? Why is he still asking me for money? Was he just toying with him? Tang Yun's heart ached at the thought. She wanted to leave and ignore Lin Yi, but she hesitated. This dress was something she really liked. She had the urge to buy it when the guy said that it wasn't a penny cheaper. Tang Yun had the urge to buy it. Although this dress was given to her by Lin Yi, she bought it with her own money. It shouldn't have anything to do with him. Yes, she bought it with her own money. What did it have to do with him? With that thought, she took out her wallet from her pocket. There was only around 200 kwai in there, which was her monthly allowance. Tang Yun took out a 50 yuan bill and gave it to Lin Yi. Here. Lin Yi took the money without saying anything. He searched his pocket for a long time and took out 4 1 yuan coins. I don't have change. Can I owe you 1 yuan? Humph. Tang Yun took the coins from Lin Yi's hand and angrily took the dress. She turned around and walked away, ignoring Lin Yi. Who did I offend? Did I ruin things with good intentions? Lin Yi flicked the 50 yuan bill in his hand and put it in his pocket. He then walked towards the food street. Tang Yun calmed down after a few steps. She thought about how Lin Yi treated her. He wasn't like other rich kids who clung on to her. He seemed to be using a different method. He was neither cold nor warm to her. He would stand up for her occasionally to show his gentlemanly side. Humph. So it was like that. Tang Yun stomped her feet. She fell for Lin Yi's trick again. He asked her for money on purpose. He wanted her to lower her guard and achieve his goal. Tang Yun wanted to throw the dress on the ground and stomp on it, but she didn't want to. She sighed and walked back to her barbecue stall. Did you buy the dress? Mrs. Tang looked at the dress in Tang Yun's hands. It wasn't the first or second day that Tang Yun liked this dress. She'd seen it before because it was too expensive, but Mrs. Tang had encouraged her today and told her to buy it. Tang Yun finally made up her mind. Yeah. Tang Yun stuffed the dress into her bag and answered absent-mindedly. How much did you spend? Did you get the price? Mrs. Tang was busy with the barbecue stall. She didn't notice her daughter's expression. 45, Tang Yun said faintly. 45? Is this for real? Didn't the owner want 200? How did he get it that cheap? Mrs. Tang was surprised. Some annoying person helped me haggle the price. Tang Yun said angrily. All right, Mom, let's not talk about this. I'll help you. Mrs. Tang shook her head. She didn't know who Tang Yun was talking about. She should be thanking him for helping her haggle the price. Why would she hate him? Lin Yi turned a corner and went back to the place where Meng Yao and Yushu were eating mushrooms. The two had just finished eating and were getting up to pay the bill. Meng Yao raised her head to see Lin Yi walking towards her with a pair of oversized underwear in his hand. Eh? Yushu heard Meng Yao's question and raised her head to see Lin Yi. Shield bro, where did you get a pair of underwear? Yushu asked curiously as she looked at the underwear in Lin Yi's hand. I bought it over there. Does it look good? Lin Yi said as he gestured at his body. Meng Yao curled her lips. You don't look like a good person wearing it. I remember there's a phrase in elementary school called old French gangster. Yushu nodded. Lin Yi was speechless. I'm not going to talk to you guys. There's something wrong with your taste. I bought it for 15 kwai. Wow. It was Meng Yao's turn to be speechless. 15 kwai and you're showing it off? Yushu covered her mouth and giggled. Only Lin Yi would do something like that. All right, let's go home. Shield bro, if you really like the underwear, why don't you put it on and show us? You can't change it out on the streets, can you? Shu, what's so good about him wearing underwear? Did your hair change color? Meng Yao said as she pinched Yushu. I thought you wanted to see it. Yushu blinked innocently as she looked at Meng Yao. You were so surprised just now. Chapter 107. Well, Meng Yao was just about to call Lin Yi over to the food street when she noticed something with a frown on her face. Who parked their car here? What's wrong with their manners? Lin Yi saw it as well. Meng Yao's Audi S5 was surrounded by a couple of sports cars, but the cars weren't very high-end. There was a Geely Jaguar, a Hyundai Royale, and an Audi TT, the best of which was a grade lower than the Audi S5. A couple of fashionably dressed young men started whistling as they saw Lin Yi, Meng Yao, and Yushu walk over. Your car. Lin Yi looked at them, guessing that the car they were surrounding belonged to them. There was no way they'd show up here so coincidentally otherwise. Bro, is that your car? A fashionably dressed young man asked Lin Yi as he looked at the Audi S5. Move your car. Lin Yi didn't answer his question, instead giving the order with a dark face. What are you talking about? One of the girls pushed the young man away. It's just an S5, right? It's not like I can't afford it. I saw you're the latest model, so I wanted to talk to you. The car's mine. Who the hell are you? Don't block the road. I'll call the cops. Meng Yao frowned, not really interested in the girl. She'd run into things like this before, but she'd always call the cops to resolve it. HM? This car's not yours? The girl looked at the keys in Lin Yi's hand curiously. Driver? Doesn't look like it. You're her toy boy, aren't you? Fuck off. Meng Yao exploded. Did this person know how to talk? What did she mean by toy boy? Couldn't he tell that he was her fighter? Lin Yi, get them out of here. Ugh. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. Did you hear that? My miss is telling you to leave. Your family's young miss? The delinquent girl was stunned. Oh, I understand. So you're a bodyguard. Lin Yi didn't explain much and just nodded. Boring. You're quite handsome. I thought you were a young master. The girl turned around and looked at Meng Yao. Since the car's yours, let's have a race. Do you dare? Is there something wrong with him? Compete in what? I'm not an idiot. Why would I race? Meng Yao said. Why didn't you move the car? I called the police and asked them to tow the car. Tisk, do you want to fight? The girl looked at Meng Yao in disdain. It's not like you can't stop here. So what if the police come? Lin Yi, you take care of this. Meng Yao pointed at Lin Yi, pissed off. Me? Lin Yi pointed at himself. But since the miss had spoken, if Shield Bro didn't act now, when would he act? Lin Yi took 2 steps forward. Are you guys not going to move the car? Lin Yi didn't want to be rough with these rich young masters and misses. Most of them weren't bad people, but they lacked discipline in their families. That was why they were rebellious. They were different from the gangsters in the society. These people were just looking for excitement, while gangsters made a living by causing trouble. So what if we don't move? The girl put her hands on her waist. Which car is yours? Lin Yi looked at her faintly, a smile on his face. This one. What do you think? The girl pointed at the Audi TT in front of the S5. Lin Yi looked at the Audi TT and smiled faintly. This girl was obviously the leader of the group, and her identity was definitely not as simple as the others. Sports cars like Geely and Hyundai could generally be afforded by any well-off family. It was not a big deal. Although the lowest configuration of an Audi TT was only about 500,000 yuan, One could tell from the car's license plate that the girl's family was definitely not simple. The license plate of the Audi TT was ATT000. No wonder the girl was so arrogant. However, Lin Yi didn't care. As long as he didn't cross the line, even if the girl's family was powerful, he wouldn't mess with her. And from the car that the girl drove, it could be seen that her family wanted her to keep a low profile. This car plate was probably bought by someone else in the family or a friend to please the girl. Lin Yi walked to the front of the Audi TT and placed one hand on the back of the car. The girl and the others quieted down and looked at Lin Yi strangely. They didn't know what he wanted to do. I say, this idiot isn't thinking of pushing the car, right? The young man who spoke before spoke. He seemed to have seen through Lin Yi's intention. Are you stupid? This car weighs a ton. The handbrake has been pulled up. Can you push it? Lin Yi didn't pay attention to him. His hand turned into a palm and quickly pushed the back of the Audi TT forward. It looked like a simple palm, but the Audi TT was directly pushed forward. With a chi sound, a row of tire marks was left on the ground. F***CK. Are you serious? The young man who had arrogantly called Lin Yi stupid was instantly dumbfounded. You can push it? My car. The girl was shocked. She was shocked and distressed. She couldn't help but exclaim when she saw that her tires were damaged. However, Lin Yi didn't go overboard. She wanted to cause trouble, but she didn't have an excuse. The cause of this incident was that she had blocked someone else's car. Thinking of this, the girl looked to the young man for help. Are you F***king looking to die? How dare you touch Sister Feng's car? Do you want to die? It wasn't the first time that the young man had acted as a protector. In this kind of situation, it wasn't easy for the girl to stand out. He didn't have any scruples and jumped out directly. Sister Feng? Lin Yi was shocked. Could it be that he had encountered a legendary figure? He looked carefully at the girl's face. This wasn't Sister Feng, right? Even if she had makeup that looked like a ghost, she still looked different from Sister Feng. It was probably just someone with the same name. Lin Yi ignored him and pulled him to the side. Under everyone's shocked gaze, he pushed the modern lawns, who was blocking the S5, to the side. Although it was surprising to see him push the Audi TT from the back of the car, anyone with a bit of strength could do it. However, pushing the car from the side of the car horizontally was much more difficult than before. One could imagine the resistance. The young man wanted to say a few more words, but he saw that Lin Yi had a lot of strength. Moreover, they were in the downtown area. It was fine to cause trouble, but it wasn't good for a group fight. Therefore, he froze after saying the word you. Chapter 108. Find someone to investigate him. Lin Yi didn't say anything after pushing the car, completely ignoring the delinquent as he got into Meng Yao's Audi S5 and quickly moved the car out of the small empty space he'd just pushed out. The speed and precision of his maneuvering, it left everyone speechless. The empty space Lin Yi had pushed out wasn't big, just enough for a car to pass through. In other words, the distance between the cars on the left and right sides was less than 2 centimeters. It was hard for normal people to maneuver at that distance, and the slightest deviation would cause a collision. But Lin Yi had moved the car out without any effort at all, and it was so fast that it didn't seem like he'd even consider the possibility of scraping the cars nearby. A master. This guy was actually a master at driving. Xiao, the delinquent girl from before, felt her heart skip a beat. She'd thought that this guy was just someone with a bit more strength and a bit more handsome, someone who'd caught the eye of a rich young miss as a bodyguard. She hadn't expected him to be this good at driving as well. Xiao frowned. She hadn't hired a personal bodyguard herself, but she knew the market for one. Hiring a bodyguard like Lin Yi, with good looks, incredible strength, and incredible driving skills. Putting aside the fact that it wouldn't be easy to hire him, even if she did hire him, it wouldn't be a small sum of money. Xiao was a little interested in the two young misses behind Lin Yi as well. She memorized the S5's license plate, planning to investigate it when she got back. Lin Yi moved the car out and didn't even look at Xiao and the others. He got out of the car and sat in the back seat. Meng Yao only now realized that Lin Yi wasn't that hateful after all. At least he'd gotten her some face today. In the past, Meng Yao would have had no choice but to call the police. But Lin Yi pushed the car to the side in no time at all, moving it out of the way. He looked at Xiao, pleased with himself, and under Xiao Xiao's murderous glare, got in the car, stepped on the gas, and drove off. Xiao Xiao was really pissed. She didn't have any bad intentions. She just happened to see an Audi S5 that was released this year and wanted to see who the owner was. She invited him to a race, but she didn't expect to run into this guy. The car didn't belong to Lin Yi, but to Xiao Xiao, Lin Yi was even more despicable than the Mississippi. He was just a lackey for a rich miss. He was quite handsome and looked quite stylish when he pushed the cart. His driving skills were even better. However, he was a lackey, and he was still so proud of himself. Thinking that she was being bullied by someone else's lackey, Xiao Xiao was even more pissed off. What the hell was this? Even someone else's servant was bullying him. Humph, the next time I see you, I'll let you know how powerful I am. Feng sis, what do you think? The young man didn't know what to say after all. Someone who could afford an Audi S5 wasn't a normal person. Ignorance was bliss, after all, but his family did have some business dealings, and some of them were in the political world. They weren't that powerful, but they'd been in contact with Songshan's upper-class society before. They were people who knew the severity of the situation, and it wasn't wise to make enemies without knowing who the other party was. Their old man had some power, but it was only if they really pissed off someone powerful, they'd be in big trouble. If it were a normal person, the young man would have brought his men to give Lin Yi a good beating in order to please Xiao Xiao. But as the saying went, you had to look at the owner before you hit the dog, and Meng Yao was obviously not some lowly person. The young man didn't dare act rashly, in case he dragged his old man into the mess. What are you looking at? Let's go. Xiao Xiao humphed coldly, pissed off. Boring. Feng sis, should I get someone to look into that kid? The young man wasn't stupid. He knew that Meng Yao wasn't someone to be messed with, so he cleverly turned his attention to Lin Yi. As far as he was concerned, as long as Lin Yi wasn't with Meng Yao, it wouldn't matter. It was just a servant. They could do whatever they wanted with him. Even if something really did happen, even if the other party had some power, they wouldn't make a big deal out of a servant's family. Their families were all average, but Xiao Xiao's family wasn't. Go and check the license plate of her Audi S5, Songshan AS5555. Not a bad brand. Xiao Xiao humphed, agreeing with the young man's actions. Got it, Feng sis. I'll get someone to check it right now. The young man nodded and took out his phone to make a call. His face changed immediately. Lon bro, what did you say? The car's secret? How's that possible? It's a civilian plate. It's a military plate? All right, I got it. The young man hung up with a bitter look on his face. Feng sis, this car's secret. Xiao Xiao, of course, had heard the conversation, and her expression wasn't any better than it was now. It was possible that the car was secret, after all. Her father's car was secret, and this was very common among government officials and people with high statuses. Normal people weren't allowed to look into it. But the young man's last sentence made Xiao Xiao frown. A local license plate from the military? That was interesting. A military plate wasn't something that just anyone with a bit of power could get their hands on. Even if they did get their hands on a military plate, it wouldn't be a low-profile military plate like this. But so what if it was like that? She wasn't the one she was looking for. It was that lackey of hers. Humph, with her father's status, even the military wouldn't be able to do anything to him, let alone her grandpa. With that thought, Xiao Xiao calmed down and turned to the young man. Then let's not worry about the car for now. Go look into that bodyguard's identity, see who he is, and which company he belongs to. No problem, Feng sis. The young man was a bit troubled when he heard that Meng Yao's car was secret military. With his family's power, they couldn't afford to piss off someone like that. But now that Xiao Xiao wanted him to focus on the bodyguard and not Meng Yao, he let out a breath of relief. I've already secretly taken a picture of him with my phone. I'll get someone to look into it right now. Chapter 109. He'd die if he kept practicing Lin Yi. Naturally, didn't think much of the kids from before. He was only a high schooler himself, but these kids were just like Pin Liang and Zhou Ruoming back at school, childish beyond belief. Hey, I'll get Faubert to get you a driver's license when we get back, and we'll get a car too. You'll be driving next time, all right? Meng Yao said as she glanced at Lin Yi in the rearview mirror. Lin Yi was deep in thought. He didn't pay attention to what Meng Yao was saying, assuming that she was talking to Yushu. Meng Yao was a little pissed off at Lin Yi's ignoring her. Hey, I'm talking to you. HM? Me? Lin Yi snapped out of it. Miss, you're calling me? Of course I'm calling you. What else am I supposed to call Shu? Meng Yao was driving and didn't have the time to glare at Lin Yi. Oh, I'd be more than happy to say yes if you called me uncle, Lin Yi said with a smirk. HM? Meng Yao blinked, realizing what Lin Yi was getting at. She slammed on the brakes in frustration. Yushu didn't react in time and almost crashed into the windshield. Yao Yao, what are you doing? Ugh, I'm sorry. Meng Yao gritted her teeth at the sight of Lin Yi and scathed. She'd wanted to stop the car and shake Lin Yi a little, but Yushu was the one who'd almost gotten hurt. Lin Yi. Meng Yao was a little pissed as she turned to glare at Lin Yi. Did you hear what I said to you just now? What did you say? Lin Yi didn't hear what Meng Yao was talking about, thinking that she was talking to Yushu. He didn't pay much attention. It's nothing. Meng Yao didn't want to waste any more time with Lin Yi. She thought, my dad hired you anyway, you'll drive if I tell you to. I don't need to discuss anything with you. Oh, Lin Yi didn't think much of it, thinking that Meng Yao was throwing a tantrum. Meng Yao pulled Yushu upstairs with a huff when they got back to the villa. Meng Yao thought that Lin Yi was a bastard, that follower of her daddy's, and yet he was acting like that. Lin Yi naturally didn't take it seriously. She was a young lady, so it was normal for her to have a temper. She was too gentle to him, and it caused trouble instead. Today, after washing up, Lin Yi couldn't wait to fall asleep. He wanted to find Jiao Lao and ask him about energy. It was the first time that Lin Yi knew that energy could save people. He had thought that the energy in his body would only be effective for him, but he didn't expect that it could also help others. You're here? Jiao Lao was the same as yesterday, standing quietly in the Jade's virtual space. Jiao Lao. Lin Yi was a little excited when he saw Jiao Lao. Jiao Lao, what's with the energy in my body? How can it help others? Everything in this world needs energy to survive, but the way they absorb it is different. For example, humans and animals absorb energy from food, while plants absorb water and nutrients from the soil. You, on the other hand, can absorb energy from nature. Zhao Yazi explained. The energy you absorb is a little more complicated than the energy your body transforms, but it's similar in nature. This energy is effective for you, so it's naturally effective for others as well. It's just that you can convert it, but others can't. They can only use you as a carrier to absorb the energy you convert. So you're saying that the energy in my body can be transferred to others at any time? Lin Yi was a little excited when he heard this. If that was the case, others didn't need to cultivate and could also absorb the energy in his body to achieve the same goal. That's naturally impossible. Jiao Lao's words poured cold water over Lin Yi's head. At least after I studied the first level of the art of dragon mastery, I realized that it's impossible. I don't know whether the next few levels are possible because I haven't seen the specific cultivation method, so I can't say for sure. Then what happened today? Lin Yi was instantly disappointed when he heard Jiao Lao's words. I've told you about what happened today. The reason why the old man was able to absorb the energy you released to him was because the energy in his body was no longer enough to maintain his normal cardiac power. Under such special circumstances, the energy in your body could only be used by him. Jiao Lao said, under normal circumstances, the energy in an ordinary person's body is already enough to maintain the work of the entire body's organs, so there's no need for your energy. My explanation may not be very clear, because the cultivation method was left by Martial Uncle, and I only know a little about it. Although Jiao Lao's explanation was a little complicated, Lin Yi still understood what Jiao Lao meant. Under normal circumstances, his energy would be ineffective for ordinary people. It would only work in an emergency. In other words, only when some parts of the body have problems will the energy be effective for ordinary people? Lin Yi asked. You can say that, but this effect is only to maintain the work. It's impossible to restore these damaged organs. Zhao Yazi said, this is what I said today. It's not a problem for you to save him, but it's impossible to cure him. I have other ways to cure him. Through acupuncture and decoction of traditional Chinese medicine, he can slowly recuperate. Lin Yi didn't feel disappointed this time. As long as he could save him, it was already amazing. He just needed to maintain it first and think of other ways slowly. However, he was not related to the old man today, so there was no need for him to take the initiative to give him follow-up treatment. If he was too enthusiastic, it would make people think that he had ulterior motives. Lenny got the answer he wanted, so he calmed down and prepared to continue his cultivation. However, just when he entered the state of cultivation, he was interrupted by Jiao Lao. "I say, Lin-Yi, what are you doing?" Jiao Lao frowned and asked. "Cultivating." Lin-Yi looked at Jiao Lao with some doubts. "Can't he see what I'm doing? You don't have the cultivation method of the second level. Why do you continue to cultivate? Don't you know that if there is too much energy in the body, without the correct cultivation method to guide it, it is easy to explode and die?" Jiao Lao stared at Lin-Yi with an expression of, "Are you a fool?" Ugh. Lin-Yi was shocked. "I didn't expect there to be such a saying." Fortunately, I established a connection with Jiao Lao early. Otherwise, if I accidentally broke through the first level of cultivation outside, I might really explode and die if I continue to cultivate. But didn't I waste some energy to save the old man today? Lin-Yi was a little embarrassed. Don't I need to make up for it? Chapter 110. Chapter 110. Family dinner, sleeping. Can replenish energy too? Lenny said, a little incredulous. Kid, you're overthinking it. Of course sleeping can replenish energy, but why do people sleep? Do they have nothing better to do? Isn't it to replenish energy? You're the same. You've trained in the art of dragon mastery, but you're still a human at heart. You haven't mutated. Zhao Yazi said as he looked at Lin Yi with a pitiful gaze. Don't overcomplicate things. It's actually very simple. Even kids understand. I see. Lin Yi's face reddened a little. Zhao Lao's words weren't unreasonable, but he was overthinking things. That's right. Zhao Lao nodded. Go to sleep. It looks like you haven't slept in a while. Poor kid. Poor thing. Lin Yi fell into a deep slumber that night. It was the best sleep he'd had since he'd left the cave. So sleeping really did replenish energy. Lin Yi felt refreshed when he woke up, stretching his body before heading to the bathroom to wash up. He put on the new casual clothes he'd bought yesterday before leaving the room. There was no one in the living room. Meng Yao and Yushu probably still hadn't woken up. General Wei Wu stood guard at the staircase leading to the second floor, and Lin Yi was curious as to what a girl's room looked like. But he'd have to do it openly if he wanted to peek, right? Lin Yi pushed open the villa's door and walked into the villa's courtyard. The villa area was very quiet on weekends, and there weren't any cars coming and going. There was only the occasional passing car. Lin Yi hadn't been standing at the door for long when he saw Faubert's Bentley slowly drive over and stop in front of the villa. Mr. Lin, you're outside? Faubert nodded with a smile when he saw Lin Yi. Faubert, this early? Lin Yi looked at the time. Yao Yao and Shu haven't woken up yet, right? It's getting late. They should be tidying up. Mr. Lin, don't you want to change into something more formal? Faubert looked at Lin Yi's casual clothes and asked. Me? Make it more formal? What for? Lin Yi was stunned and looked at Faubert in confusion. Mr. Lin, don't you know? Every Sunday, Mr. Chu holds a family banquet. In the past, Miss Chu, Little Shu, and I attended together. But this time, Mr. Chu specifically told me that Mr. Lin must attend as well, Faubert explained. Family banquet? Lin Yi didn't expect Peng Zhan's family to have this custom, but since he was invited, Lin Yi naturally wouldn't reject it. All right, but I don't have anything formal. I just bought this yesterday, and other than that, I only have my school uniform. Haha, Faubert couldn't help but laugh. That's fine, it's a family banquet anyways. Mr. Lin, please get in the car first. I'll call Miss Chu and the others. Oh? Okay. Lin Yi nodded and opened the door to the front passenger seat. Watching Faubert enter the villa, Lin Yi narrowed his eyes. Truth be told, this mission was the most relaxing one for Lin Yi, and also the most baffling one. Lin Yi was tricked by his old man into accepting a mission that would give him a lifetime's worth of commission. But even now, Lin Yi still didn't know what this mission was. Playing with the miss all day long? Being the miss's bodyguard, babysitter, study partner, and shield? Although it was a bit difficult, But there was no need for an S-ranked assassin and secret agent like him to do this, was there? Besides, Lin Yi wasn't an idiot. He wouldn't think that doing something like this would give him a lifetime's worth of commission. What kind of joke was this, unless Peng Zhan was out of his mind? But now, it seemed that Peng Zhan was very smart, and his brain wasn't out of his wits. This was what Lin Yi was confused about. If it wasn't for his old man's insistence and guarantee, Lin Yi would have suspected that there was some kind of conspiracy going on. But Lin Yi also knew that although his old man was a bit frivolous, he would never harm him. This was also the main reason why Lin Yi could stay here peacefully. Even if the miss was a beauty, Shu was very likable, and there was also an interesting commoner beauty. Lin Yi didn't have the time to play around here. It'd be terrible if he lost his life here. Meng Yao and Yu Shu came out not long after Li Fu went in, dressed differently from yesterday. Compared to yesterday's youthful and dazzling appearance, they were much more ladylike today, giving off the vibe of socialites. Faubert helped Meng Yao and Yu Shu open the car door and waited for them to get in before going back to the driver's seat. Meng Yao was surprised to see Lin Yi in the front passenger seat. She didn't think that her father would invite Lin Yi to the family dinner today. Meng Yao was actually a very smart girl, but she was often pissed off by Lin Yi. Since Lin Yi was sitting here, it must be her father's idea. There was no way that Faubert would invite Lin Yi on his own. Although this Lin Yi wasn't as annoying as before, and he was suitable to be her follower, was her father really going to let a man like him stay in her house for a long time? Faubert started the car, and it slowly drove out of the villa area towards the city center. Mr. Chu's family banquets are all held at Pengzhan International Hotel in the city center. It's also one of Mr. Chu's company's properties. It was Lin Yi's first time attending a family banquet, so Faubert explained. Who's coming later? Are there any rules? Lin Yi was used to being wild, but this was his employer's family banquet. Lin Yi couldn't be too rude. In the past, other than me, Miss Chu and Shu, it was Mr. Chu. Faubert said. As for rules, there aren't any. Family banquets are just for relaxation. There aren't too many rules. Don't eat so much. Just make a fool of yourself. Meng Yao teased, remembering Lin Yi's appetite. Haha. Faubert, naturally, knew that there was a small gap between Meng Yao and Lin Yi. He smiled. Mr. Chu doesn't like to waste things. It'd be great if Mr. Lin could eat everything. Faubert. Meng Yao was a little unhappy at Faubert's words. She started to act coquettishly. Why are you going against me? Meng Yao was just saying it casually. She knew what kind of person her father was. Faubert was right. She was just making fun of Lin Yi. She didn't think too much about it. Now that Faubert saw through her, she felt a little embarrassed. Miss Chu, this old man can't talk about Mr. Chu's habits behind his back. I can only tell the truth. Faubert smiled. Chapter 111. Chapter 111. Something feels wrong. Faubert's car drove into Pengzhan Hotel's underground parking lot without any obstructions, and the group went through a special passageway to the top floor of the hotel. The place wasn't open to the public, and there weren't any signs of people coming and going. Faubert brought Lin Yi and the others to a private room and knocked on the door. In actuality, Meng Yao and Yu Shu had been here many times already, and they couldn't be more familiar with the place. Come in. Peng Zhan's voice came from the room. Faubert pushed the door open, but didn't go in. He turned to Meng Yao instead. Miss Chu, Shu, Mr. Lin, please come in. Meng Yao and Yu Shu were evidently used to it by now. Faubert's image of an old butler was deeply ingrained in them. Lin Yi, on the other hand, was a little embarrassed. Faubert, you too, Mr. Lin, you're a guest? Faubert said firmly. Lin Yi had no choice but to enter the room. Lin Yi greeted Peng Zhan with a smile. Hello, Uncle Chu. Have a seat. Haha, make yourself at home. It's just a family banquet. Peng Zhan said with a smile as he greeted Lin Yi. You'll get used to it later. It's a fixed time every week. Unless I'm away on a business trip. Haha. Lin Yi could only smile bitterly in response. What was wrong with him participating in someone else's family banquet? Faubert was Peng Zhan's confidant, and Yu Shu was Meng Yao's best friend. House Qin and House Chu were old friends, so it was only natural that she'd be attending the banquets. Even Meng Yao, who was at the side, was shocked. What kind of drug did Linny feed her father to make him participate in the family banquets, and even tell him to get used to it? Didn't that mean that Lin Yi would have a part in the family banquets every week? Meng Yao had accepted Lin Yi's existence in her heart, but she still couldn't take it lying down. Lin Yi was just too infuriating, acting all lazy and cocky. So many people wanted to be her shield, but they didn't even have the chance to do so. Not only was he acting all sloppy, he was even pissing her off. What Meng Yao didn't know was that this competitive mentality of hers would become something she would regret in the future. Heh, shield bro, you're a part of our family now. Take care of me. Yushu greeted Lin Yi obediently. Take care of you? Lin Yi rubbed his nose. Who's taking care of who? You're always using a chicken feather as a token of authority, threatening me with a piece of toilet paper. Yao Yao, what do you think? Are you satisfied with Lin Yi now? Peng Zhan smiled as he looked at his daughter. So what if I'm satisfied or not? Can you just fire him if I'm not satisfied? Meng Yao said, feeling wronged. Haha, I see that Shu and him get along quite well. What's wrong? Are you unhappy? Peng Zhan asked. Nope. Meng Yao shook her head. She was actually feeling quite conflicted. The scene of Lin Yi standing up for her that day kept flashing in her mind. But Lin Yi's sloppy attitude, not taking her seriously, pissed Meng Yao off. It was as if he was treating Shu better than he was treating her, and that was what Meng Yao hated the most. Why? Was she that bad? If it weren't for Pinliang, Meng Yao would have thought that she'd gotten uglier recently. If that's the case, then you guys get along well. You're all the same age, and I'll be more at ease if you have a companion. Peng Zhan nodded in satisfaction at his daughter's words. Meng Yao sighed. This was like inviting a wolf into the house. She was a pure and innocent girl, living under the same roof with a stinky man. Of course, that wasn't the most irritating thing. The most irritating thing was that Lin Yi didn't seem to have any interest in her at all. Soon, dishes were served one after another. It could be seen that the chefs here were very attentive in preparing the family banquet. The dishes were not luxurious and were all very common home-cooked dishes. However, whether it was the color or the matching, they were all very exquisite. With Peng Zhan's status, he wasn't interested in exotic delicacies anymore. Healthy food was what he needed. Since Peng Zhan had asked Lin Yi to make himself at home, Lin Yi didn't hold back. Who wouldn't want to eat with their stomachs? There wasn't much to pretend about. Anyway, he was Peng Zhan's employer and employee. After all, there was no need for formalities. And so, under Meng Yao's disdainful and Yushu's surprised gazes, Lin Yi dug in. Meng Yao felt a chill run down her spine. Bro, can you stop embarrassing me? You're my follower after all. She glanced at Yushu discreetly and sighed in relief when she saw that Yushu didn't look too surprised. Humph, he was just a follower. Why did she care so much about him? What did eating have to do with her? Meng Yao comforted herself. Lin Yi ate the most during the meal, and Meng Yao couldn't take it anymore. Lin Yi, are you going to pack up later? Ugh, that's what I'm thinking. Lin Yi nodded. Meng Yao was speechless, and Yushu snickered. Peng Zhan, on the other hand, was still smiling at Lin Yi. Ever since the bank incident, Peng Zhan's impression of Lin Yi couldn't get any better. He didn't pay much attention to the old man's nagging, but it seemed that his father had a good eye for people. Yao Yao, you, Shu, and Faubert can go downstairs first. I'll pack up with Yi. Peng Zhan got up to look for a lunchbox, and Meng Yao was a little stunned. Her father wasn't some extravagant person, but he'd never packed a bag before, right? Yushu, on the other hand, looked at Peng Zhan thoughtfully, a strange light flashing through her eyes. She returned to normal after a moment and pulled Meng Yao's hand. Yao Yao, let's go first. Oh, Meng Yao was very curious about her father's actions, but it wasn't her place to ask. She felt that her father's attitude towards Lin Yi seemed to be even better than his own. What? He's just a hired follower. Faubert walked in front to get the car, and Yushu and Meng Yao walked behind him. Yushu pulled on Meng Yao's hand. HM? What's wrong, Shu? Meng Yao looked at Yushu, who was walking very slowly, curiously. Yao Yao, I have a feeling. Yushu hesitated, but decided to say what she was thinking. As for that moment of confusion, she buried it deep in her heart. Feeling? What feeling? Meng Yao looked at Yushu, not understanding what she was talking about. Yao Yao, Don't you feel that Uncle Chu has something going on with Lin Yi? Yushu said in a low voice. Chapter 112. Bastard child, Dad seems to care more about him than he does about me? And why's his attitude so nice? Meng Yao frowned. Yeah, especially when Uncle Chu told you to get along well with Lin Yi, since you guys are the same age. Don't you think that's a little ambiguous? Yushu analyzed. Would Lin Yi have to say that if he's just a follower Uncle Chu hired? Just look at how strict Uncle Chu has been with your male classmates all these years. There's no way Uncle Chu would let a guy live with us for no reason at all. You're right. Meng Yao nodded in agreement. It was true. She'd had a good upbringing since she was young. She was strictly told that she wasn't allowed to date before she was 18, and that she wasn't allowed to go out with boys. She was 18 now, but wasn't this change in attitude a little too much? Meng Yao couldn't believe that her father would suddenly become so open-minded, letting a man into their house. There had to be something fishy going on. Meng Yao wouldn't have thought much of it if Yushu hadn't pointed it out. After all, she'd thought that the reason why Lin Yi was here was because of Lin Yi's magic potion. But thinking about it, wasn't her father a smart man? Pengzhan Industries was such a big company. How could they be tricked by a country bumpkin like Lin Yi? It didn't seem possible. That meant that Lin Yi coming here was something her father approved of from the bottom of his heart. What was the reason for her father to make such a decision? Plus, Faubert seems to be very respectful towards Shieldbro as well. Yushu hit the point. It didn't matter if Pengzhan admired Lin Yi or not, but the fact was that Pengzhan admired a lot of people. Many of the young talents in the company had been recruited by him, and all of them treated Faubert with utmost respect. After all, Faubert was an old friend of Pengzhan, and even the vice-chairman of the company had to call him Li Bro. Faubert's attitude towards Lin Yi, on the other hand, was different from how he treated the other employees. It was more like how he treated Yushu and Meng Yao. Yeah. Meng Yao's brows furrowed even tighter. She was starting to suspect Lin Yi's identity and her father's intentions for sending him to her. Yao Yao. In short, whether it's your dad or Faubert, their attitude towards Shieldbro is way too ambiguous. It's like they're not treating someone they hired. They're treating him like family. Yushu voiced out her thoughts. It might scare Meng Yao, but she had to say it as Meng Yao's best friend. After listening to Yushu's analysis, Meng Yao suddenly thought of a terrifying possibility. It was a possibility that scared even Meng Yao herself. Shu, do you think Lin Yi might be Daddy's illegitimate child? Meng Yao's eyes were wide open as she looked at Yushu, panicking. Why else would Daddy like him so much? Wha? Yushu was stunned as well. She didn't think that Meng Yao would come up with such a miraculous reason. Uncle Chu's illegitimate child? Yushu felt a chill run down her spine. But that was basically impossible. The two of them didn't look alike at all. Meng Yao was way too strong for her to come up with something like that. What's wrong, Shu? Meng Yao asked as she looked at Yushu standing there, stunned. Did I say something wrong? Yao Yao, your imagination's too strong. Shieldbro's around our age, right? If he's an illegitimate child, it'd be after Uncle Chu met your mom. But, is it even possible then? Is there even a chance? Yushu shook her head, speechless. Ugh, maybe I'm wrong then? But what else could it be other than that? Meng Yao gave up on the idea as well. It was too unreliable. Yao Yao, I think Uncle Chu's looking for a son-in-law. He's treating Shieldbro like a son-in-law, Yushu said with a mischievous smile. She didn't know why, but Yushu didn't feel comfortable saying those words. Looking for a son-in-law? Meng Yao's mouth was wide open as she looked at Yushu. Shu, are you serious? I don't know if it's real or not. It's just a guess. Yushu shrugged. It just feels like it, but it might not be. How is that possible? I'm only 18. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Meng Yao's face was red as she shook her head. What do you think, Shu? I think you and Shieldbro are a good match. Yushu smiled. You know how to drive, cook, and even know kung fu. That's not bad. I don't want to. Meng Yao rejected subconsciously, but in her heart, that strange feeling was surging restlessly. Daddy really wants him to be my boyfriend? Is he not just pretending to be a shield? If that's the case, he can protect me. The scene in the bank had given Meng Yao a deep sense of security and dependence on Lin Yi. But the mispride and arrogance made Lin Yi even more despicable. If that's the case, why would he still flirt with other girls? How could her daddy like someone like that? She and Shu must have misunderstood. Or maybe her father had other intentions. Meng Yao and Yushu made their way to the underground parking lot and got into Li Fu's Bentley. Meng Yao sighed softly. Shu, what do you think about our guesses? How likely are they? It could be 0%, it could be 50%, it could even be 100%. Yushu had already returned to normal as she giggled. But I feel like it depends on which one you want it to be, Yao Yao. Me? What do I hope for? He likes Ling Shan, and that pretty girl at the business district yesterday. What does that have to do with me? Meng Yao's tone was a little sour, even though she was making fun of Lin Yi. Haha. Yushu smiled, sighing inwardly. Could it be that Yao Yao had feelings for him too? Faubert got in after checking the car, and Meng Yao and Yushu stopped talking as well. Meng Yao's expression flickered between happiness and annoyance, but no one knew what she was thinking. Chapter 113. Killing intent. During this period of time, many things had happened. Peng Zhan had already threatened the company's board of directors a couple of times, telling them not to act rashly. But if someone really wanted to go against Peng Zhan, he wouldn't be able to control them. As a result, Faubert had to be extremely careful, be it in the company or outside. The car was parked in the company's parking lot, but Faubert still made sure to check the car's exterior carefully before he drove off. It wouldn't be so bad as to plant a bomb, but destroying the brakes or puncturing the tires was a possibility. Faubert had to be on guard. Peng Zhan and Lin Yi walked at the back of the group, Lin Yi having a pretty good idea of Peng Zhan's intentions. Peng Zhan wouldn't be this enthusiastic about packing up, so there had to be something he wanted to say to Meng Yao and Yushu first. What's the matter, Uncle Chu? Lin Yi asked as he put the food on the table into boxes. Haha, I can't hide anything from you. Peng Zhan picked up a lunchbox as well. I've already done my own investigation on the matter in the company, and I've confirmed the suspect, but this involves the reputation and benefits of the previous generation. I can't make a move before I have concrete evidence, Peng Zhan said as he picked up a lunchbox. Uncle Chu, you want me to go collect evidence? Lin Yi asked. That's not necessary. Just stay by Yao Yao's side, and don't let anything happen to her. I can handle the company stuff for now, Peng Zhan said with a shake of his head. That's fine. Just let me know when you need me. Lin Yi said inwardly. Did he even need evidence? Tell me who you suspect, and I'll just kill them for you. What's the point of looking for evidence? But Peng Zhan was the employer, and Lin Yi had to follow his instructions. Do you have enough money? Spending time with Yao should be quite expensive, right? I heard you guys went shopping yesterday, Peng Zhan said, changing the topic. Money? Not really. Lin Yi shook his head, a bitter smile on his face as he pointed at his clothes. Miss Chu paid for this set of casual clothes. I haven't spent much yet. Haha, shopping? Men have to spend to show their manliness, Peng Zhan said with a smile. How about this? I'll get Li Fu to get you a credit card later. You can just swipe it. All right. Lin Yi smiled and shrugged. He didn't reject the offer anymore. Why wouldn't he accept money that was given to him? He didn't know why Peng Zhan was doing this, but he wasn't in the habit of rejecting money from his employer. The two came out of the elevator and went to the underground parking lot. They walked in the direction of Li Fu's car, and Lin Yi's Jade reacted after a few steps. What's wrong? Peng Zhan noticed that Lin Yi wasn't moving anymore. What's wrong? Peng Zhan asked, puzzled as Lin Yi stopped walking. Peng Zhan paused. Killing intent? Peng Zhan paused. Killing intent? Peng Zhan, on the other hand, hadn't sensed it, but he knew that killing intent was a mysterious thing. It wasn't surprising that Lin Yi could sense something that normal people couldn't. Boom! A huge chandelier fell from the sky, shattering into pieces where they were standing. Boom! A huge chandelier fell from the sky and landed where the two of them were standing before, shattering into pieces. Peng Zhan's face paled as he looked at the broken pieces of the chandelier. His eyes were filled with rage. The chandelier was huge. If it wasn't for Lin Yi's quick reflexes, they would have been smashed by the chandelier. The chandelier was made of glass. It wouldn't kill them if it fell on their heads, but it would definitely hurt them. These people dared to do this. Peng Zhan's face was filled with anger. They were too daring. Peng Zhan knew that this was revenge for what he did during the board meeting on Friday. It seemed like these people had reached the point where they could do whatever they wanted. Not only did they dare to kidnap Meng Yao, they even dared to do something like this. Li Fu was in the car, and naturally, Meng Yao and Yu Shu saw it as well. The two stared blankly at the scene, and after a while, Meng Yao and Yu Shu finally cried out. What happened? It was too scary. Li Fu, on the other hand, was calmer. He was already running over to Peng Zhan. Mr. Chu, are you all right? Call the security guards to check what's going on. Close the underground parking lot, and don't let anyone leave. Peng Zhan ordered. It's fine, Linny said as he looked at the cut on the chandelier. He stood up and said, someone used a sharp weapon to cut the cord of the chandelier. Oh? Peng Zhan paused and looked in the direction Lin Yi was pointing. There was indeed a neat cut on the wires of the chandelier. Peng Zhan's face darkened. But how did they calculate the time? The chandelier fell when we passed by? Haha. I'm guessing that the chandelier was turned off when we passed by. The cut cord wasn't enough to keep the chandelier working, so the chandelier fell. Linny said. Of course, it's just a guess. Maybe they have other ways. Peng Zhan wasn't stupid. He knew that Lin Yi's hypothesis was very likely. If that was the case, then there was no need to investigate. Since the enemy had done it so secretively, he wouldn't be able to find anything even if he went to investigate now. The evidence must have been destroyed. Let's go. Peng Zhan took a deep breath and suppressed his anger. He walked to the car with Faubert. You sit in the back with Yao Yao and the others. I'll sit in the front passenger seat. Peng Zhan said to Lin Yi. Okay. Lin Yi nodded. He was about to open the back door when he saw Meng Yao in the back seat. Lin Yi hesitated and turned to Yu Shu's side. He opened the door and got in. Compared to Meng Yao, Lin Yi and Yu Shu had a better relationship. The Bentley was spacious, and it wasn't cramped even with 3 people in the back. Chapter 114. Worrying about personal gains and losses. Chapter 114. Worrying about personal gains, her dad was looking for a son-in-law. Linny did look quite handsome now. Plus, for a girl who'd grown up in a rich house like hers, it didn't matter if the guy was young or rich anymore. She'd rather find a man who'd focus on her, someone who'd protect her, someone who'd protect her. Evidently, Lin Yi was capable of protecting her. She didn't have anything to do with him right now, and he was just someone her dad hired. If he was willing to stand in front of her when she was in danger, wouldn't he be even more careful and protective of her if he were to become her boyfriend? Meng Yao blushed even redder at the thought. She'd never been in a relationship before, and her heart was starting to stir. She didn't think much of it before, but Yu Shu's words made her start to think about it. But the worst part about Lin Yi seemed to be that he was a playboy, or was it because she wasn't attracted to him at all? Why was he and Lingshan together when they just met? And why was that tall girl he'd seen yesterday? Could it be? Was it because she was too immature? Meng Yao felt a little sad at the thought. She looked at Yu Shu beside her. The girl was a lot more voluptuous than she was. No wonder Lin Yi treated her better than he did her. That pervert must have fallen for Shu's bigger boobs, Meng Yao thought hatefully. Humph, if this guy was going to sit next to her, she'd have to teach him a lesson. It'd be best if she pretended not to step on him or push him when Li Fu was braking. She'd let him know the consequences of underestimating her. But Lin Yi didn't open the door for her. He went to Yu Shu's side, opened the door, and got in. Meng Yao's face didn't look too good at all. What the hell was the meaning of this? My dad hired you to be my shield. You should be sitting next to me. What's wrong with you sitting next to Shu? Meng Yao frowned. She wanted to yell, Lin Yi, come sit here. But her dad and Faubert were sitting in front of her. She hesitated, but didn't do it in the end. Her face was a little unhappy though. Peng Zhan pulled out his phone and dialed a number, his face dark. Is this Director Chen? I'm Peng Zhan. Hello, Mr. Chu. Chief Chen of the Songshan police station picked up the phone, his tone much better after hearing that it was Peng Zhan. Peng Zhan wasn't just the biggest entrepreneur in the city, he also held a position in the provincial government and, most importantly, He was friends with the military's House Chen. As a distant relative of the Chens, Chief Chen naturally understood the implications. Bureau Chief Chen, I would like to ask, how is the bank robbery going? Did you catch the suspect who kidnapped my children? Peng Zhan was indeed very angry. He didn't even hide his daughter and Yushu's back as he dialed the number. The culprit was simply too arrogant, trying to kidnap his daughter just a few days ago, and now he was doing it again. There's no news yet, Chief Chen said helplessly. The suspect is very cunning, the license plate is fake, and we don't have any valuable leads yet. All right then, I'll have to trouble Chief Chen to let me know if there's any news. Peng Zhan was still very polite to Chief Chen, since he was Yushu's relative. He just didn't know if Yushu would recognize him. All right, I'll get someone to hurry up. Director Chen hung up the call and called Ling Shan's office. Song? I'm Chen Dafei. Come to my office for a bit. All right. Ling Shan could tell that Chief Chen wasn't in a good mood. She quickly put down what she was doing and gave her subordinates some instructions before heading to the chief's office. She knocked on the door and only entered when the chief said, "Come in." "Chief, you're looking for me?" "Song, you're here?" Dafei pushed his glasses up and put down the documents in his hands. "Sit. Tell me about the bank robbery case. Is there any progress?" "Chief, we've set up a 313 task force, and we've sent people to investigate the case, but there's no news yet." Ling Shan reported carefully. She was the one in charge of this case, and Huaijuan had recently been transferred to a neighboring city to handle a case. He'd probably be promoted to vice chief after the case was over, and so the criminal police had fallen on Ling Shan's shoulders. But without Huaijuan's protection, Ling Shan realized just how much pressure it was to be the leader of a task force. Huaijuan had always been the one making the decisions, and she'd never thought about the pressure from all sides. Now that she was the one leading the team, Ling Shan realized how difficult it was. But no matter how difficult it was, she had to grit her teeth and get through it. There were no weaklings in House Song, and she'd be looked down upon if she gave up just like that. Hurry up, I don't need to say much about the importance of this case. It involves Peng Zhan's daughter, and we have to solve it as soon as possible. We have to arrest the suspect. Chen Dafei said. Here, give me a time frame. How long do you need to solve this case? Ling Shan hesitated. Huaijuan had always been the one giving the orders in the director's office, but now she was the one doing it. Ling Shan wasn't confident, but the heavy responsibility was on her shoulders. Chief, I promise that I'll arrest the suspect in half a month. No, 10 days. Ling Shan saw Chen Dafei's eyebrow twitch when she said half a month, and quickly changed it to 10 days. Okay, that settles it then. 10 days, I'll wait for your good news. Chen Dafei nodded, satisfied. Ling Shan went back to her office, her brows furrowed as she tried to think of what Huaijuan would have done if he'd been in her shoes. But after a long time, she rubbed her temples helplessly. She didn't have a single clue. Every case was different, and there were different ways to solve it. Ling Shan was in the middle of her dilemma when the phone on her desk rang. She quickly picked it up. Hello, criminal police, Ling Shan? Chapter 115. No flirting. All right, I'll go right now. Ling Shan's heart was set. Finding the leader of the suspects was supposed to be something to be happy about, but Ling Shan couldn't bring herself to be happy at all, because what they found was not a living person, but a corpse. This meant that there was more to the case than met the eye. This Baldy might have been silenced. If that happened, the case would become even more complicated, and finding the real culprit would be too difficult. But, as much as it was a headache, Ling Shan still rushed to the scene with her men. Yao Yao sis, what's wrong? Yushu noticed that Meng Yao wasn't in a good mood too. She thought that Meng Yao had become more obedient because of Uncle Chu, but Yushu realized that wasn't the case after a while. It's nothing. Meng Yao shook her head. She was a little annoyed at Lin Yi's lustful behavior, but she couldn't be jealous of her best friend, could she? Oh, I think yesterday's mushrooms are better than today's. What do you think? Yushu nodded. Meng Yao was speechless, but Yushu's words amused her. Shu, you're just living on the streets. Your husband's gonna have to save a lot of money when you get married. Hee hee, if I get married, won't you get married too? Plus, It's saving money for you. Yushu said with a smile as she looked at Meng Yao. Give me, Meng Yao's face reddened abruptly as she realized what Yushu was talking about. She couldn't help but hit Yushu. That was when we were kids. Why are you still talking about it? Hee hee. We did pinky promise when we were young. Yushu's face reddened as she spoke. She glanced at Lin Yi from the corner of her eyes. Was Uncle Chu really planning to make Lin Yi his son-in-law? I'm not talking to you anymore, Meng Yao said awkwardly as she turned her head away. What Yushu was talking about when they were young was a little secret between the two of them. They'd never told anyone about it, but they'd still joke about it when they grew up. 6 or 7 years ago, when they were in junior high school, the two of them watched a soap opera series. It was about a pair of best friends who had a very good relationship since they were young. In order to be together every day, they married the same man, and so, Yushu stupidly said, Yao Yao, if you're getting married, I'll marry you too. That way, we won't be separated. Meng Yao nodded in agreement upon hearing that it was a good thing. And so the two pinched their pinky promise for 100 years. It was only as they grew older that they realized how ridiculous it was, but they still joked about it. Yushu, on the other hand, didn't want to call Meng Yao Big Sis anymore after she grew up. They were classmates, after all, and calling Meng Yao Big Sis felt a little childish. Meng Yao, however, used this to threaten Yushu. She'd be the main wife after she got married, and Yushu would be the second wife, so of course she'd have to call her Big Sis. If she didn't, she'd tell everyone about it. Helpless, Yushu could only go back to calling Meng Yao Big Sis. She'd been calling Meng Yao Big Sis for so many years, but it was getting easier as well. She was a few months younger than Meng Yao's birthday anyway, so calling her Big Sis wasn't a big deal. Of course, this was something only Meng Yao and Yushu were involved in. No one else knew about it. Lin Yi was a little confused as he listened to the two girls talking about obscure stuff. He shook his head, not bothering to ask. Lin Yi knew that there'd be no reply even if he did. Lin Yi sat on the side with his eyes closed. It looked like he was resting, but he was actually doing something else. Jiao Lao, the Jade's warning earlier, Lin Yi didn't know if the Jade's warning had anything to do with Jiao Lao. Lin Yi hadn't thought to ask about it when they were in the Jade's space. Warning? Jiao Yazi blinked. What warning? I didn't feel anything. You didn't feel anything? Lin Yi blinked. Just now, the moment the chandelier was about to fall, I felt the Jade sending me a signal of danger. It's the same signal that warns me every time I'm in danger. To be honest, I didn't feel anything. Jiao Yazi said after some thought. Nothing special had happened before. Then, is this the Jade's own power? Lin Yi knew that Jiao Lao wouldn't lie. If he said he didn't feel anything, then that meant he didn't feel anything. It's possible I told you. This Jade was left behind by my Grandmaster. I don't know what other powers it has, so you'll have to find out for yourself. Or you can open the stone door to the cave, and you'll find something new. Jiao Yazi explained. All right, Lin Yi said helplessly. It seemed like Jiao Lao didn't know about the Jade speciality. The training space might just be one of its functions. The car stopped in front of the villa, and Lin Yi, Meng Yao, and Yushu left after dropping them off. Evidently, Pengzhan still had to go back to deal with the chandelier. Lin Yi. Meng Yao turned to look at Lin Yi all of a sudden. HM? Lin Yi looked at the miss, confused. You're not allowed to flirt outside while you're at work. Meng Yao mustered up her courage. She'd been thinking about this on the car the whole time, and now that she'd gotten out of the car, she decided to tell him everything in one go. HM? I didn't. Lin Yi paused. Was the miss unhappy that he was flirting with girls during work? If you do, then change. Meng Yao humphed. Naturally, she didn't want to talk about Lingshan and that tall girl. Oh, okay. Lin Yi nodded. Can I do that when I'm not working? My daddy hired you with a high price to be my shield 24 hours a day. There's no time when you're not working. With that, Meng Yao turned around and left with Yushu. Fuck. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. Even the slave masters in the old days wouldn't do that, would they? Do they think I'm a slave? That girl. Yao Yao you were so cool when you flipped out. Yushu looked at Meng Yao excitedly. He won't know his place if I don't teach him a lesson. Don't think that just because daddy likes him, he can do whatever he wants. Messing around with girls, lying to Pin Liang. Mengyao didn't know what she was trying to explain. Chapter 116. Lingshan, trouble to him? Huh. Mengyao almost fell to the ground. Boyfriend? Living together? Was this Shu trying to piss her off? Mengyao, however, had no choice but to change the topic with a straight face. Shu, you're a girl. What the fart? Peeing, that's so uncivilized. Don't talk about it anymore. Oh, okay. I'll stop. Shu nodded. That's good. Mengyao breathed out in relief. Yao Yao, if you're fine with it, I'll tell Yangzi about you and she'll bro tomorrow. Shu continued. Mengyao wanted to punch Shu. Didn't you say you weren't going to talk about it? Ugh. Mengyao understood that Shu wasn't going to talk about it. She just didn't want to talk about those uncivilized things anymore. She still had to talk about it. Shu, it's not the right time yet. Lin Yi just transferred here, and we've already shown that we're not familiar with him. If we tell him now that wouldn't that be too fake? Everything has to be done step by step. We'll talk about it after a while, and it won't be so sudden anymore. Mengyao said. Oh, I'll listen to you then. Yao Yao. Shu nodded. I don't really care. Anyway, you're the main wife, you pick your man. I'm just giving you a reference. Shu. Mengyao wanted to punch the girl to death. Why do you keep bringing that up? You're not an idiot. You're not going to marry me if I do. That's hard to say. Shu hugged Mengyao. If I don't want to be separated from you, then we'll be together. I really don't know what to say. Mengyao shook her head, speechless. The two walked up the stairs hand in hand, and Mengyao turned to Weiwu. General Weiwu, you did well. Keep guarding us, and don't let that man come up. Woof, woof. Weiwu felt wronged. How could he stop him if he wanted to go up? Lingshan was quite troubled. Lu Jian was dead, and all the clues were gone. Only Lu Jian's bald head was more obvious, and the others were much more ordinary than Lu Jian. As for Lu Jian, according to the forensic report, he had died from a single gunshot. The other male corpse was also one of the bank robbers. He had died from a single gunshot as well. Apart from these two corpses, there were no other corpses. In other words, only two of the kidnappers were dead, and the others might still be alive. This was good news. If all of them were dead, it'd be even more of a headache for Lingshan. But only two of them were dead. This meant that there was an internal conflict within the group, or they were killed after the deed was done. Through the internet search, the other male corpse's identity was confirmed. Ma Lu, male, 29 years old, unemployed young man from Electric Ox Village in Songshan's Cargo Rat County. He had a bad reputation in the village and was considered a loafer. He left the village early last year, and his whereabouts were unknown. Evidently, Lingshan didn't know Lu Jian until after Ma Lu left Electric Ox Village, so this clue wasn't very meaningful. After some hesitation, Lingshan decided to give Huaijuan a call and ask for advice. She really didn't have a clue what to do. She'd already made the order, and the director wouldn't fire her if she couldn't solve the case in 10 days, but it'd be very embarrassing for her. Not only would she be embarrassed, but her father wouldn't be able to raise his head in front of the other uncles. Young bro, it's me. Lingshan was a little uneasy. After all, calling Huaijuan would make her seem useless. She'd been learning from Huaijuan for so long without any progress, and it was quite embarrassing. In the past, Huaijuan was always the commander, and she was the vanguard. With her experience as a special ops instructor, she'd be able to beat the crap out of the criminals, no matter how cruel they were. As a result, dangerous capture missions were Lingshan's forte, and this was something the police department acknowledged. A female captain wouldn't be able to win over people easily otherwise. What's up, Song? Huaijuan had a meeting at the provincial office in the afternoon and had nothing to do in the morning. He was planning on going to the doctor for a checkup. He'd had a relapse a couple of days ago, and while it was all because of Lin Yi, his body had been deteriorating day by day, and Huaijuan could still sense it. Captain Yang, there's still no leads on the 313 bank robbery case. 2 suspects are dead, and we don't know if the others are alive or dead. Lingshan said carefully. Huh. Huaijuan, naturally, understood Lingshan's predicament. She wasn't a criminal investigator, after all, and hadn't gone through any systematic training. I know that already, so I'll tell you what I think. I think that the chances of them being silenced are higher. There's no way that only 2 people would die in a group, and the rest would be fine. Huaijuan, naturally, understood Ling Shan's predicament. Then, what if they were killed by someone else? Only the 2 of them aren't on the same side? Ling Shan asked humbly. Is there a need for that? If they were on the same side, why would they bring 2 people who weren't on the same side with them? Isn't that just asking for trouble? Either they're reliable or they're not, Huaijuan said with a smile. So, I think there's a higher chance of internal strife, and it's most likely that they didn't split the loot evenly, so LVJN and Malu were killed by their accomplices? Yeah, that's right. That should be it. Ling Shan nodded in agreement. If that's the case, then we'll just have to increase our search efforts. They've got so much money with them, and unless they don't want it anymore, they won't be able to move too quickly. We have people on the main roads, and the chances of them leaving Songshan is very low. Let's search the area around the corpses. We might be able to find something. Huaijuan said. Yeah, got it. Ling Shan said, feeling as if she'd been enlightened. Haha, Song. I heard that you're friends with Lin Yi? Huaijuan sighed, but decided to ask anyway. The police department was already talking about Ling Shan's heroism, serving her boyfriend in the hospital. Huaijuan didn't really believe that Lin Yi and Ling Shan could be together. Lin Yi wasn't the type of person to go around flirting, and Ling Shan herself hadn't had any scandals in her time in the police department. Even a man as outstanding as Chen Yutian was rejected. Chapter 117. The Master of Traditional Chinese Medicine? Ah? Ling Shan blinked, her face darkening immediately. She hadn't expected the captain she admired to be this gossipy. In her impression, Huaijuan was a strict and serious person, and yet he was asking a question like this. It wasn't that Ling Shan hadn't heard of the rumors in the police station, but she had no way to explain them. Things like this would only make things worse the more she tried to explain. Anyone with eyes would misunderstand what had happened in the hospital, and so there was nothing she could do about it. She could only let them say whatever they wanted, and hope that things would calm down after a while. She really didn't know how to explain it now that Huaijuan had asked. Captain, I didn't. Haha, the police force doesn't allow people to date, that's your thing. Huaijuan said with a smile, assuming that Ling Shan was shy. He didn't say anything else after seeing her hesitation. It wasn't his place to comment on Lin Yi's stuff. After all, he'd only gotten worked up for Ning, but Lin Yi was their team's god. He would always be their captain. Captain Yang. Ling Shan didn't know what to say. Haha, but you could ask Lin Yi for help. Maybe he'd be able to catch the suspect soon, Huaijuan said, regretting it a little as soon as he finished the sentence. Sorry, Eagle, I sold you out. But thinking about the relationship between Ling Shan and Lin Yi, Huaijuan didn't think too much of it. If Lin Yi and Ling Shan's relationship had really reached that stage, then there was no way Eagle wouldn't help Ling Shan. Him? The suspect? Ling Shan paused, but Huaijuan had already hung up. Ling Shan gritted her teeth in anger. Lin Yi, you bastard. You've ruined my reputation. Ling Shan, however, only thought about it hatefully. She quickly arranged for the police force to do a large-scale search of the crime scene according to Huaijuan's analysis. Huaijuan, on the other hand, quickly drove to Songshan's Medicine University after hanging up. Songshan Medical University was one of the most famous medical universities in the country. It even enjoyed a certain level of prestige in the world. Many foreign students came here to study traditional Chinese medicine for no other reason than the director of the School of Chinese Medicine, Guan Xuemin. Guan Xuemin enjoyed a high reputation in the medical world. He was a leading figure in the field of TCM. Although the Guan family was not a prominent family, with Guan Xuemin's presence, the Guan family had become one of the prominent families. Who dared to say that they were not sick? Who would dare say that they wouldn't be able to get Guan Xuemin's help? Therefore, even though the Guan family had only started to develop in the past 10 years, it was not inferior to those big families at all. It was just that his foundation was still shallow, but it was not a big problem. Who would go against the Guan family? Going against the Guan family was the same as going against the other great families. Huaijuan's family, the Yangs, was also one of the big families. It was normal for them to ask Guan Xuemin to treat them. Guan Xuemin rarely went to class anymore, and only gave a weekly lecture to the students of the School of Chinese Medicine. His lectures were targeted at the students of the School of Chinese Medicine, but many students from other faculties came to listen to his lectures as well. One reason was because of Guan Xuemin's reputation, and the other was because Guan Xuemin really did have something useful to say. Guan Xuemin lived in the family area of the school, in a private villa area. The people living here were all the leaders of the school, as well as the famous professors of the school. Huaijuan was driving a police car, but he was still stopped when he entered the villa area and was only allowed to pass after a careful registration. After all, there were many national-level academicians like Guan Xuemin, and some even had international titles. He parked the car in front of Xuemin's villa and got out. He was just about to ring the doorbell when the door opened at that moment, and a pretty girl walked out. She paused when she saw Huaijuan, a smile forming on her face. "Young bro, you're here for Grandpa. Exine, going to work?" Huaijuan guessed that Guan Exine was going to work, judging from her neat and tidy attire. "Yeah." Guan Exine nodded. "I need to leave early, or I'll miss the commuter bus." "You don't have a car?" Huaijuan blinked at Guan Exine's words. Guan Exine was taking a commuter bus? "I just started working. Where would I get the money for a car?" Guan Exine smiled. "Young bro, Grandpa has a guest. You'll have to wait for a while after you go up." "All right, go then. Don't be late." Huaijuan nodded to Guan Exine. He could tell that Guan Exine wasn't relying on her family. It was rare to see rich girls like her, and even Lingshan had her own private car. Guan Exine didn't lock the door. She was familiar with Huaijuan and knew that he wasn't a bad guy. Huaijuan didn't ring the doorbell again and went straight upstairs. He saw Guan Xuemin taking the pulse of an old man in the living room, a middle-aged man and woman standing beside him. "How's my father, Elder Guan?" the man asked carefully as he looked at Guan Xuemin. "Not too good. It's very serious." Guan Xuemin didn't mince words as he spoke in front of the old man. His heart muscle's been deteriorating, and it's almost impossible to cure it. Regular acupuncture should be able to keep it under control. The old man evidently knew his condition well and didn't react too much to Guan Xuemin's bluntness. The middle-aged man, on the other hand, was a little anxious when he heard that Guan Xuemin could keep it under control. "Can it? That's all right. It'll be fine as long as it doesn't worsen or act up." He'd seen a lot of doctors, but none of them had been able to do anything about it. He'd come to Guan Xuemin's place out of curiosity, but hadn't expected to find a solution. "That's not a problem." Guan Xuemin nodded. "Acupuncture once a week can keep it under control for a week, and if it's done well, another 10 years shouldn't be a problem." "Another 10 years?" The old man was quite happy to hear Guan Xuemin's words. 10 years is a lot of things we can do." "Then we'll have to trouble you, Elder Guan. We live in Yinjing, and as for the weekly acupuncture, we'll pay for the treatment fee, and we'll reimburse you for the travel back and forth," the middle-aged man said. "I don't have the time. The acupuncture has to be done here." Guan Xuemin rejected the offer mercilessly. He had his own rules when it came to treating patients, and he didn't have to do it himself. The middle-aged man was in a difficult position. His father was already so old. Wouldn't it kill him to go through the trouble every week? Chapter 118. A master doctor, you should find someone else. Guan Xuemin didn't even look at the middle-aged woman as he stood up, clearly intending to send them off. The middle-aged man's lungs were about to explode at the sight of his wife throwing a tantrum. It hadn't been easy finding a doctor who could treat his father's illness, but she'd offended him just like that. Was Guan Xuemin an ordinary doctor? Did he lack money, and even double the fee? The middle-aged man stomped his feet in anger, raising his arm and slapping the middle-aged woman across the face. "Shut up, Huiru." Huiru was dumbfounded by the slap. She covered her face and stared dumbly at her man, who ignored her and chased after Guan Xuemin. "Elder Guan, don't stoop to her level. Don't be angry, let's talk this through." The middle-aged couple was the middle-aged service workers Lin he had met in the business district. The man's name was Lu Tianyi, and the woman's name was Wu Huiru. Guan Xuemin was just a little angry, but felt that Lu Tianyi's words made sense. There was no need for him to stoop to the level of a woman who was throwing a tantrum. The patient was more important, and so, He turned around and walked back. I'll stay here. Tianny, you two go back to Yinjing. Elder Lu spoke up, not even looking at Huiru. It was clear that he was disappointed in his daughter-in-law as well. Dad, you. Lu Tianny looked at his father worriedly. It's fine. You two go back to your work. This old man here is free, so I'll just treat it as a vacation. Rent me a house nearby, and I'll live here. It's close to Professor Guan, and the environment is pretty good. Elder Lu said with a smile and a wave of his hand. All right. Lu Tianny knew that no one could change his father's mind. He took out his phone and dialed a number. Is this Principal Zhang? It's Lu Tianny. My father's decided to live on campus. Please arrange a house close to Guan's house for me. All right, I'll be waiting for your news. Huaijuan had been trying to figure out who the old man and the middle-aged couple were, and he was even more surprised now that the middle-aged man was on the phone. This Principal Zhang was most likely the headmaster of Songshan Medical University, and Lu Tianny was able to get him a house close to Guan Xuemin's house with just a phone call. This wasn't simple at all. One had to know that all the people living in the villa district were at least at the dean level, especially the high-end villas near Guan Xuemin's house. Xuemin's Guan Xuemin Guanguan's house. Xuemin turned to Huaijuan after he was done with Elder Lu. Yang, you're here. Take a seat. We'll talk when we're done here. You can go watch TV or surf the internet for a while. All right, Grandpa Guan. Don't mind me. Go to your thing. Huaijuan and Xuemin were quite familiar with each other by this point, and he didn't bother with formalities. He sat down in front of the TV and switched channels. Xuemin, on the other hand, was arranging Elder Lu's treatment plan. Lu Tianny was ready to leave with his father the next day. Right, Elder Guan. Do you know a young doctor who's really good at massaging? He's an Eastern medicine practitioner, right? Lu Tianny was reminded of Lin Yi all of a sudden. As far as he was concerned, Lin Yi's massaging techniques were very advanced. If he were to cooperate with acupuncture, the effects would be even more obvious. Lin Yi's miraculous massaging techniques were still fresh in Lu Tianny's memory. There was a saying that age didn't determine one's ambitions. Massaging techniques are good? Xuemin blinked. You mean Eastern medicine? I think so. Tianny nodded. We were shopping in the business district the day before yesterday when my father got sick all of a sudden. We didn't have any medicine at the time, and it was at a critical juncture when a young doctor gave him a massage. My father recovered very quickly. Massage? Just a massage can cure angina pectoris? Xuemin was even more astonished. He knew that Eastern medicine was a magical discipline, and that it was a saying that one should never be too old to learn. He might be famous in the country, but Xuemin knew that Eastern medicine was a vast and profound field, and he was still a long way from mastering it. However, he also knew that angina couldn't be cured by a simple massage. It could be controlled with acupuncture. Although the chances weren't very high, there was still hope. Even he himself would use Western medicine for emergency treatment, and after his father returned to normal, he would use acupuncture to control the condition. Yeah, he just massaged my father a couple of times, and he's slowly recovering. Tianny's heart skipped a beat as he looked at Xuemin's shocked face. He didn't know much about Eastern medicine, but he could tell from Xuemin's expression just how miraculous the doctor's skills were. Even Xuemin couldn't believe it. How is this possible? Xuemin frowned. Massaging has such a magical effect? Didn't he use any other methods? No, I was just beside him, and he just happened to pass by here. If he didn't know the girl who was driving, he probably wouldn't have come to meddle. Speaking up to this point, Lu Tianny blushed a little and glared at his wife. If it wasn't for the Wu family, he would have divorced his wife a long time ago. It was really too embarrassing. She was an unreasonable shrew, and he didn't know what kind of upbringing she had when she was young. Fortunately, Xuemin didn't care about anything other than massaging. After hearing what Lu Tianny said, he thought for a while and said, Eastern medicine is broad and profound. I've read in a medical book that in ancient times, people used qigong and massage to treat illnesses, and this effect could be achieved. However, it's been lost in history now. I'm not sure if the person you're talking about knows this method. Oh? If that's the case, then isn't that person very amazing? Lu Tianny was a little regretful. If he knew that young man had such amazing medical skills, he wouldn't have let him go. Even if he begged, He should have asked if there was any hope of curing his father's illness. It was just that he didn't know at the time, Sai. If what you said is true, then this person's medical skills are probably above mine. But when did such an amazing Eastern medicine doctor come to Songshan? How come I didn't know about it? Xiaomin tried hard to recall if there was such a master among the people he knew, but unfortunately, not only was there no one, he hadn't even heard of it. Chapter 119. It's too late, around 20? Xiaomin's brows furrowed tightly, so young and already so good at medicine. Could he be from some hidden family of miracle doctors? Xiaomin may have been promoted to a very high position, and he was renowned throughout the world for his acupuncture skills, but he knew very well that there were many people in the world who were very good at medicine, but didn't show their faces to the public. He'd met one when he was younger. He'd learned acupuncture from him. He'd barely scratched the surface, but it was enough to make him famous throughout the world. That was why Xiaomin was surprised to hear that the person was around 20, but he didn't doubt it. The master he'd met back then wasn't that old as well? But Xiaomin wasn't naive enough to think that the person he'd met back then would still be young after all these years. Plus, Lu Tianyi had said that the person was around 20, but the person he'd met was at least 30. Could it be that he'd practiced some sort of divine art that allowed him to live younger and younger? It didn't seem possible, Professor Guan. I've seen the young man after that, and I can confirm that he's no older than 20. He had a mature aura about him, but judging from his face, he couldn't be too old. Elder Lu, who'd been listening on the side, spoke up. If that's the case, then I really don't know who you're talking about. There are a few famous masseurs in Songshan, and even the youngest one is in his 50s. Xiaomin didn't finish his sentence, but no matter how bad one's eyes were, it was impossible to mistake an old man in his 50s for a 20-year-old boy. I see. Lu Tianyi was a little disappointed. Then there's nothing I can do. Didn't you guys leave his contact information that day? Lu Tianyi didn't know what to do, but Xiaomin was intrigued. How many people in the world could be an expert in traditional Chinese massage with such miraculous effects? As a leading figure in the traditional Chinese medical world, Xiaomin really wanted to get to know this masseur. Perhaps if they could have a discussion, he'd be able to benefit a lot from acupuncture. There were many similarities between massage and acupuncture. They were both treated through acupuncture points. We did give him a way to contact us, Tianyi said. A little awkwardly, he didn't think too much about it at the time. But Xiaomin's unusual expression made him realize just how powerful that person was. My father told him to contact us when he's in Yinjing, Guan Xiaomin smiled, but there was a hint of disdain and indifference in his smile. If an ordinary young doctor knew old man Lu's identity, he would probably think of ways to curry favor with him, right? However, to a person with superb medical skills who lived in seclusion, this was nothing. If a 20-year-old lad wanted fame, wealth, and status, he could make a name for himself just by relying on his superb massage skills. However, he had never heard of such a person. It was obvious that he didn't care about fame and fortune. This was very rare for a 20-year-old young man. Guan Xiaomin thought back to when he was young. After receiving the guidance of that expert, he too wanted to make a name for himself. Guan Xiaomin couldn't help but feel ashamed. This was a real expert. It would be strange if such an expert would take the initiative to contact old man Lu. Lu Tianyi didn't notice anything, but although old man Lu was old, he was very shrewd. He could read the hidden meaning in Guan Xiaomin's faint smile. His heart couldn't help but skip a beat. He was afraid that he had missed a great opportunity to cure his disease. Thinking back to Lin Yi's indifferent expression that day, it seemed like there was something he didn't say. Perhaps he really did have a way. Thinking up to here, old man Lu felt a little regretful. It seemed like he wasn't enthusiastic enough. That day, it was obvious that Lin Yi had a grudge against his family because of Wang Xinyan. He saved him only because he didn't want his friend to be implicated. If he contacts you, please inform me, Mr. Lu. Thank you. Guan Xiaomin didn't have a choice. In the current situation, he could only hope that the expert would call the Lus on a whim. It was only then that Tianyi's heart skipped a beat. Guan Xiaomin said, "Trouble," twice in a row. This kind of tone was something that they had never heard before since they entered the room. The Lus were powerful, but Guan Shuimin didn't need anything from them. On the contrary, all the noble houses had things they needed from Guan Shuimin. The Lus wouldn't put on airs in front of Guan Shuimin. This was also why he slapped his wife earlier. Was Guan Shuimin someone you could yell at? If word got out, the other noble houses would laugh their heads off. They'd say that the Lus were idiots for offending a miracle doctor, but Guan Shuimin had said trouble twice in a row for a mere doctor. No matter how stupid Lu Tianyi was, he knew how important that doctor was to Guan Shuimin. Back then he sighed. All right, of course. Lu Tianyi was a person of high status. Although he regretted it, he didn't show it on his face. He spoke politely to Guan Shuimin. All right, you guys prepare a place to stay then. We'll start the acupuncture tomorrow. Guan Shuimin nodded and stood up, indicating that he was sending them off. All right, Professor Guan. We'll be on our way then, Lu Tianyi said as he helped Elder Lu down the stairs with Wu Huiru, who was covering her face with her hands. Guan Shuimin didn't send them off. He turned to Huaijuan instead. Yang, there's no rush, right? No, Grandpa Guan. Those people were… Huaijuan hadn't seen this family before, and it seemed like they weren't locals, especially since that Lu Tianyi mentioned something about Yinjing. Oh, Yinjing's house, Lu, a big house. The doctor's elder is Lu Zhenhu. He's 80 this year. He's in good health, but he's sick. Guan Shuimin and Huaijuan started talking about the Lus. The two were quite familiar with each other now. So it's Yinjing's house, Lu. No wonder they could get the principal to prepare a house with just a phone call. Huaijuan smiled. Let's stick to the old routine. Acupuncture won't have much effect on you anymore, but it's better than nothing. Hang in there. I'll go to Yinjing next week for an Eastern Medicine Symposium. I'll use your condition as a case study and discuss it with others, see if there's anything we can do. Guan Shuimin said. Chapter 120. Looking at the prescription, keep it up. It'd be great if it was just keeping it up. Guan Shuimin sighed. It's not like you don't know how damaging those painkillers are to your body. Over time, let's not even talk about whether they're still effective or whether your body will develop resistance to them. Even if they don't, you'll still be worn down by the side effects of those painkillers, right? Huaijuan remembered something all of a sudden when Guan Shuimin mentioned painkillers. The prescription Linny gave him, he'd gone to the pharmacy with the intention of giving it a try that day. He'd boiled the medicine a couple of times when he couldn't sleep, and the effects were truly miraculous. His body didn't hurt after a while, and he slept all the way until dawn, feeling indescribably refreshed. It was a hell of a lot better than using painkillers in the middle of the night and having to use them again. Huaijuan wasn't expecting Lin Yi's prescription to be this effective either. He'd been drinking the medicine for the past couple of days, and the pain had been under control. As expected of an eagle, a godlike existence in the team, Huaijuan couldn't help but sigh at his own inferiority. It wasn't just him. Everyone in the team who'd fought alongside Lin Yi before was impressed. No one was jealous of their goddess infatuated with Lin Yi because they felt that it was only natural. It couldn't be any more normal than that. Huaijuan remembered the prescription Lin Yi gave him when Guan Shuimin mentioned the painkillers. He hesitated for a moment, deciding that Lin Yi wasn't going to tell anyone about it. Lin Yi was probably on a special mission right now. What if he brought trouble upon himself? On the other hand, Guan Shuimin was his elder. He'd be dead a long time ago if it weren't for Guan Shuimin. Over the past few days, she had been relying on Shuimin's acupuncture and painkillers to keep her alive. Grandpa Guan, a friend of mine, gave me a prescription a couple of days ago, something that can replace the painkiller. I tried it, and the effects were very obvious. The effect was a lot longer than the painkiller, and I only need to drink it once a night. Huaijuan decided to leave part of the story unsaid. He'd be able to cover both sides at least. Prescription? Replace analgesics? Guan Shuimin's eyes widened. Pharmacy? Yes. Huaijuan nodded, embarrassed by the glare. And it's effective on you? Shuimin had more surprises today than he had ever eaten in his life. She'd heard from Lu Tianyi that a 20-year-old miracle doctor had saved Elder Lu's heart attack with just a massage, and Huaijuan, on the other hand, had a prescription that could replace Western medicine's painkillers, and was even more effective than the painkillers. What was wrong with this world? When did the Chinese medicine world become so crazy? Why were there so many experts? I won't lie to you, Grandpa Guan. This prescription is very effective on me. Not only does it suppress the pain, but it also makes me feel refreshed the next day. Huaijuan said honestly. Oh, can I see the prescription? Shuamin was worried that there might be illegal drugs like poppies in the prescription at first. It'd be normal for the painkillers to be effective if there were, but it'd be very damaging to the body. But then again, Huaijuan was a police officer and a captain at that. How could he not know what poppies were? There was no way he'd touch them. Plus, poppies weren't something you could buy from a regular pharmacy. If Huaijuan had grabbed the medicine according to the prescription, then it had to be something very common, something you could find in regular pharmacies. Shuamin realized that he was overthinking things. Shuamin smiled bitterly at the look on Huaijuan's face. A lot of prescriptions were top-secret stuff, and Dr. Kong, for example. Didn't he use a prescription for an injury medicine to build a pharmaceutical company? He'd even established a supply relationship with the military, turning House Kong into a rising noble house. If Huaijuan's prescription was really that effective and didn't have any side effects, then it shouldn't be any less valuable than Dr. Kang's injury medicine. Asking to see the prescription was a bit too much, Shuamin thought. Thus, he hurriedly explained, Little Yang, don't overthink it. I know that many prescriptions are confidential. I wanted to see if there were any medicinal herbs with side effects. Grandpa Guan, the prescription isn't something that can be leaked, but it's fine if you want to see it. Huaijuan paused. I'll show it to you right away, but I hope you won't leak it before my friend gives me permission. Of course. I understand the rules, Yang. Don't worry, I won't put you in a difficult position. I won't let anyone else use this prescription before your friend gives his permission. Shuamin was overjoyed at Huaijuan's words. A prescription like this would give him a lot of inspiration, even if he couldn't use it himself. Huaijuan had kept the prescription on him the other day and handed it to Shuamin after taking it out. Huaijuan knew Lin Yi's personality. He'd tell him if it was something that needed to be kept secret, and if he didn't, then it meant that there was no need to keep it a secret. Still, he hadn't gotten Lin Yi's permission yet, so Huaijuan told Shuamin to keep it a secret. Shuamin took the prescription carefully and started looking at it. It was fine at first, but the shock on his face grew deeper and deeper as he read out the names of the herbs. This is a prescription? Shuamin was a bit dumbfounded on the spot. The ingredients on the list couldn't be any more ordinary, and none of them were particularly expensive. A few of them, such as Gastrodia alata, did have the effect of calming pain. He'd used these herbs on Huaijuan before, but the effects weren't as obvious. Could it be that these herbs had a different effect when put together? Shuamin was surprised, but he was a leading figure in the field of Eastern medicine. He knew that a single ingredient in a prescription could make a huge difference in the effects of the medicine. These herbs were mostly used for nerve and muscle pain, and there wasn't anything special about them. The only thing Shuamin was sure of was that these herbs weren't poisonous, and they didn't contain anything overbearing like poppy seeds. Chapter 121. Lin Yi is a miracle doctor, no? Shuamin said with a shake of his head. Eastern medicine sure is deep and profound, and I've learned a lot from it today. I can't believe that a couple of normal herbs would have such a miraculous effect when put together. I don't know the theory behind it yet, but the fact that it's working on you means that the prescription is real. Then I can take it without worry? Huaijuan's decision to take the medicine without hesitation was entirely due to his trust in Lin Yi. Who wouldn't trust a man who'd entrust his back to Huaijuan on the battlefield? What could he possibly do to him? Huaijuan, however, couldn't help but be shocked at Shuamin's affirmation of the prescription. The fact that Shuamin was saying this was proof of how miraculous the prescription was. Of course, the person who gave you the prescription must be a big shot in the Eastern medicine world, right? Shuamin sighed. Of course, I'm not trying to find out his name, but I'd like to meet him and ask him some questions if I have the chance. Aye, Grandpa Guan, I'll pass on your message if I see him again. But, Huaijuan said, troubled. I understand. It's fine if he doesn't want to see me, haha. I know my place at least. Miracle doctors are pretty busy, after all. Shuamin said, understanding. Miracle doctor? Huaijuan almost faint. Lin Yi was a miracle doctor? He knew that Lin Yi was a god of war on the battlefield, but he didn't know that he was a miracle doctor. The medicine he'd brought back from his hometown was quite effective, but that didn't make him a miracle doctor, did it? All right, I'll pass on the message. Huaijuan nodded, not in a position to say anything else. That's good, Yang. You look like you're in good spirits. Evidently the prescription is working. It looks like it won't be a problem if your body doesn't develop a resistance to the medicine. Xuemin had been observing Huaijuan ever since he'd entered the room. Traditional Chinese medicine was all about observation, and this observation referred to the patient's expression, complexion, body shape, posture, and tongue, in order to detect any abnormalities in the internal organs. Traditional Chinese medicine practitioners had gradually come to realize that the external organs of the body, especially the face, tongue, and tongue coating, were closely related to the internal organs. If there were any changes in the yin, yang, and blood of the organs, it would definitely be reflected on the surface of the body. Just as the spiritual pivot, internal organs chapter says, look at the external response to understand the internal organs, then you will know the illness. The divine physician of this generation, Bian Ke, was able to determine Kai Huanggong's condition through looking. Bian Ke left after looking at Marquis Huan, which meant that Bian Ke knew that Kai Huanggong was beyond saving with just one look and left immediately. Guan Xuemin wasn't at Bian Ke's level yet, but Huaijuan's complexion was noticeably better than before. Guan Xuemin could tell that it was the result of the herbal medicine. Then I can stop using the painkillers? Huaijuan wasn't expecting his miraculous captain to give him yet another big surprise. Of course you can stop that. You don't even need acupuncture. Guan Xuemin said, in the past, acupuncture was only to help you refresh your mind, stimulate your nerves, and relieve the damage caused by the painkillers. But now, it's no longer necessary. You're full of energy, so you don't need me anymore, Grandpa Guan. That's not what I meant. Huaijuan panicked. My friend's prescription. Huaijuan was having a hard time explaining himself. He was afraid that Guan Xuemin would think otherwise. After all, he'd been looking for Guan Xuemin all this time, and he'd taken someone else's prescription without telling Guan Xuemin first. It was a little like he didn't trust Guan Xuemin, but Huaijuan couldn't say no to the person who gave him the prescription. Compared to Guan Xuemin, Huaijuan was closer to Lin Yi. Haha, look at you, Yang. What are you so nervous about? I'm more than happy that you're able to find a better miracle doctor to treat you. There's no need for me to not give you acupuncture. Guan Xuemin explained with a smile, seeing through Huaijuan's thoughts. Plus, like I said, I'm happy enough to meet someone as powerful as him. I'm just an apprentice before him. Why would I be unhappy about something like this? I see. I've been thinking too much. Huaijuan sighed in relief. I'll pass on your message, Grandpa Guan, but I can't decide if he wants to meet me or not. Of course. Guan Xuemin nodded. Yang, come visit me often even if you don't do acupuncture anymore. We've been together for so long. I'll miss you a little if you don't come. Don't worry, Grandpa Guan. I'll come when I'm free. Huaijuan promised. Huaijuan decided to go talk to Lin Yi after leaving Guan Xuemin's villa. He wanted to talk to him about Guan Xuemin, as well as the prescription. He'd given it to Guan Xuemin on his own accord. Lin Yi made an assorted fried rice with the leftovers from Peng Zhan's banquet in the morning, taking a bite and leaving the rest for Meng Yao and Yu Shu. He went back to his room and took the medicine he'd brewed for Huaijuan, planning to give it to him when he had time today. There was a saying that went like this. After eating Lin Yi's fried rice, Meng Yao didn't give Lin Yi a hard time at all. Instead, her face was blushing red, surprising Lin Yi. Did the girl change her policy? Was she trying to mess with him now that she couldn't kick him out? After all, he'd gotten into a little misunderstanding with Meng Yao before. She'd drunk a soda with his saliva on it, and while it wasn't a big deal to him, it was a little serious for a conservative girl who'd never had a boyfriend before. As a result, Lin Yi understood Meng Yao's attitude towards him. It wasn't a big deal. Yu Shu, on the other hand, was looking at things from a bystander's point of view, and that was why their relationship was different. Lin Yi? You're not eating? Meng Yao asked as she looked at Lin Yi, who'd just come out of the room. I've already eaten. You guys eat? Lin Yi said, changing back into his uniform. Oh, Why are you wearing your uniform again? Where's the clothes I bought you yesterday? Mengyao frowned as she looked at Lin Yi's uniform. The school didn't force students to wear uniforms. After all, it wasn't as strict in high school as it was in elementary school. Students from slightly better families wouldn't wear uniforms all the time. Chapter 122. The beautiful times at school. I think it's pretty good. I'll change back if you don't like it. Linny didn't really mind. He just wanted to experience the life of a student, an era that used to be so far away from him. Now that it was within his reach, Linny wanted to immerse himself in it as much as he could. There was no toil like back home, no nervousness and danger on the battlefield, no fear of missions. Everything was so peaceful, and Linny was starting to like his current life a little. Why hasn't the girl from the next class passed by my window yet? The snacks in his mouth, the manga in his hand, the first love in his heart. He always felt that the life in the song was so far away from him, that he and the character in the song were people from two different worlds. Thinking about it, the beauty from the next class passing by his window, then, a little flirting. That should be pretty good, right? As a result, He would always read novels about rebirth to reminisce about the past. For example, there was a novel called Fishman 2 called Very Pure, Very Flirtatious Prequel. There was this kind of pure school life in the novel, and He could reminisce about it. If the miss and her employer, Peng Zhan, didn't object, he could try a pure relationship, like with Tang Yin, or with Yushu. Why was he thinking about this bad girl? He glanced at Yushu. He had to admit that Yushu was pretty, and had a great body as well, but the problem was that she was the miss best friend. He decided to let it go, or the miss would really flip out. Oh, what does it have to do with me whether you change or not? What do you mean I don't like it? Do whatever you want. Mengyao was a little pissed off at Lin Yi's words. Any other guy would have been more than happy to wear the clothes she bought for him every day. But Mengyao wanted to say that she liked it when he wore yesterday's clothes, but the words turned into the miss pride and self-esteem. She sighed deeply in her heart, blaming herself. She wasn't as tough as Shu, daring to say anything she wanted. Ah, I'll wear it tomorrow then, Linny said with a smile. Yeah, Yao Yao told me last night that you look really good in casual clothes. Yushu interrupted. Shu! Meng Yao was about to explode. She thought that Yushu was the tough one, but this slip of the tongue ended up leaking the contents of their conversation last night. Linny, on the other hand, looked at Meng Yao, surprised. He didn't expect the miss to be honest at all. Li Fu's car stopped in front of the villa as they were talking, and he honked twice. Meng Yao and Yushu put down their chopsticks, grabbed their bags, and made their way to the villa. Linny looked at the leftovers on the table. He didn't need to be cleared up right away. Linny said. Lin Yushu Lin E. Linny picked up his bag and left the villa as well. Peng Zhan wasn't around this time, and Linny was still in the front passenger seat. The car started moving slowly towards the school, and Lin E got out of the car after getting Faubert to stop. Yushu said as she watched Lin Yi's back. Yao Yao, you're not going to be a good shield if you keep acting like this. Let me think about it. I can't really accept having a boyfriend all of a sudden. Meng Yao shook her head, a little embarrassed. It's fake, but other people won't know. What's the point if other people know it's fake? Yushu was speechless. Linny hadn't even taken 2 steps when he heard someone calling out to him. He turned around to see Kong Xiaobo sprinting towards him. Tang Yin? It seemed that the two of them took the same bus. Boss, what was that car just now? Kong Xiaobo had seen Lin Yi get out of a luxury car. He wasn't able to see what the car was from a distance, but it looked like it was at least 1,000,000 yuan. Oh, a friend's. He was passing by, so he gave me a ride. Linny said faintly. Meng Yao didn't ask him to say anything, and Linny wouldn't say anything. It was better this way. He was still thinking about developing a pure relationship, and if people found out that he was the misfollower. Oh, it looks like a pretty cool car, Kong Xiaobo said, a little envious. He suddenly slapped the back of his head and lowered his voice mysteriously. Boss, guess who I took the same bus with today? Tang Yin, Linny said. Ugh, Kong Xiaobo blinked. How did you know? Wasn't she not far behind you? Linny smiled bitterly. I'm not blind. Ah, it was supposed to be something exciting, But now that you put it like that, it seems normal? Kong Xiaobo's face was gloomy. I wasn't excited at first, Linny said. Tang Yin's a little prick. Whoever messes with her will be unlucky. What did you say, Linny? Tang Yin saw Kong Xiaobo, Lin Yi's follower, the moment she got on the bus, but she didn't pay attention to him. When he got off the bus, she saw that he had bumped into Lin Yi, so she focused her attention on Lin Yi. Tang Yin saw the scene of Lin Yi getting off the luxurious car. She snorted at his explanation to Kong Xiaobo that it was a friend's car. Wasn't he just a rich young master pretending to be poor at school? He was wearing high-end casual clothes yesterday, and today he was wearing a school uniform. Humph. Tang Yin thought that Lin Yi was a hypocrite. When she heard Lin Yi and Kong Xiaobo talking about her, Tang Yin's ears perked up. It wasn't until Lin Yi started talking about her that Tang Yin subconsciously blurted out. She regretted it after saying it. She didn't want to have too much interaction with Lin Yi. Tang Yin didn't deny that Lin Yi looked manly, but it didn't mean that he was manly. It was a unique charm, and Tang Yin wasn't blind. She was much stronger than Zhou Ruoming. But Tang Yun understood that rich young masters like him treated women like toys. She'd seen too many examples of this. Her childhood playmates were one of them. Tang Yin felt a wave of sadness and helplessness every time she thought about her boyfriend abandoning her. Who asked her family to be the weaker group? She couldn't just go to the young master's house and cry, could she? They might not even open the door. Lin Yi didn't think that Tang Yin would care about his conversation with Kong Xiaobo. He turned around and smiled. I said you're pretty. Chapter 123. Chapter 123. Zhong Lin Yi didn't feel much pain, but he still smiled bitterly. It seemed like Tang Yun didn't like him at all. He'd been thinking about developing a pure relationship with her this morning. How did it end so quickly? It seemed like Tang Yun wasn't going to happen, and Yushu didn't seem likely either. Boss, why is Tang Yun so mad at you? Kong Xiaobo didn't get it. Lin Yi and Tang Yun didn't even know each other, so why was Tang Yun so mad at Lin Yi? Wouldn't the problem be solved if I knew? Lin Yi explained, speechless. That's true? Boss, do you think Tang Yun likes you? Kong Xiaobo said all of a sudden. Likes me? What do you mean? Lin Yi paused as he looked at Kong Xiaobo, stunned. I heard that there's a guy from a few years ago, a girl in his class. She liked him a lot, and she'd always cause trouble for him. Whenever he skipped class or something, she'd give him a scolding. Xiaobo said, do you think Tang Yun's the same? Lin Yi rolled his eyes. Couldn't you be serious? That's possible, but Tang Yun's only known me for 2.5 days. Does she like me already? Is that even possible? Lin Yi shook his head. If that was the case, then the miss would look for trouble with him all the time. Does that mean she likes me too? That's true. Kong Xiaobo laughed dryly as he walked with Lin Yi to school. Kong Xiaobo pointed at something not far away when they were almost at the school gates. Boss, look, it's Ming Yao and Yushu. Oh. Lin Yi hadn't been paying attention to Ming Yao and Yushu, so he wasn't surprised. Boss, look at the car they are in. It seems to be the same car as the one you were in just now. Kong Xiaobo's ability to discover was still very strong. Really? It's different, isn't it? Lin Yi said with a laugh. Let's go. Don't mind them. That's true. It's too far away from us. It's not practical. Kong Xiaobo sighed. I have experienced the feeling of being high and mighty as a rich man. Lin Yi didn't know why Kong Xiaobo suddenly sighed with emotion. However, Kong Xiaobo's family conditions were not particularly good, but not bad. It could only be said to be average. So what did he mean? However, in order to keep Kong Xiaobo's attention away from the car, Lin Yi didn't ask much and quickened their pace into the school. A Mercedes-Benz S600L stopped in front of the school. It was quite a distance away from Faubert's Bentley, but it didn't get too close. That old man Li Fu's car is in front of us. Don't you remember what I said? Zhong Fabai glared at his son in the front passenger seat and lectured him in exasperation. I remember, Dad. Pinliang replied carefully. I won't poke my nose into other people's business anymore. The other people's business he was talking about, of course, was Lin Yi's business. He didn't dare say that he was the one causing trouble for Lin Yi. Instead, he blamed Naipeo for Lin Yi's trouble. Naipeo's foot was stepped on by Lin Yi, so he wanted to get revenge. This way, he would be able to reduce some of the responsibility. Fabai was part gangster, and naturally, he valued brotherhood. He didn't go overboard when Pinliang tried to get revenge for his brother. He only scolded him and told him to stay out of other people's business. Do you know that you almost ruined my plan this time? He sent my right-hand man, Heibao, to the police station, and I don't think he'll be able to get out for a few years. Luckily, he doesn't know much, or else. Fabai humphed. Remember, your first priority in school is to hook up with that girl, Mengyao. Don't think about anything else. Do you understand? I understand, Dad. I'll try my best. Pin Liang promised. And if you can get Mengyao, your dad won't have to listen to your uncle anymore. Fabai patted Pin Liang's shoulder. All right, go. Hurry up and do it before that old fox Pengzhan can react, or it'll be too late. Fabai wasn't an idiot. He did have some power in Songshan, but it was nothing compared to Pengzhan. If Pengzhan was looking for a son-in-law openly, he wouldn't be interested in Pinliang. So, Fabai told his son to make the first move. Pinliang agreed to his father's words. Although he hated Lin Yi, he couldn't do anything to Lin Yi without his father's support. If his father gave him his full support and got a team of security guards from the nightclub, Pinliang didn't believe that Lin Yi could fight four hands with two fists. Even if he could, what about 10 or 20? He didn't believe that he couldn't beat him to death. Lin Yi, I'll let you go for now. Once I hook up with Mengyao, my father will be happy, and he'll gather his men for me. That'll be the day you die. Pinliang thought to himself hatefully. Even if he didn't want to, he could only keep it to himself. He wanted to see if he could think of a way to cause some trouble for Lin Yi and annoy him a little. As long as he didn't fight him head-on, Lin Yi wouldn't suspect him. Yao Yao. Pinliang took 2 steps forward and chased after her. Yao Yao, the fly's here again. I told you, you and Shield Bro wouldn't be in so much trouble if you got together with him earlier. Yushu giggled as she pointed behind her. Mengyao rolled her eyes and turned around helplessly. Pinliang, are you deaf? Pinliang paused. Why was Mengyao calling him deaf all of a sudden? What was going on? He should be the one calling her that. Why was she calling him that? Yao Yao. What do you mean? What deaf? Pinliang didn't know what was going on. Last time, you called me Yao Yao at the school gate. I told you not to call me Yao Yao. Call me by my full name. So, I can only assume that you either have a problem with your IQ or you're deaf. Mengyao said. Pinliang's face darkened at Mengyao's mockery. You're just a little prettier and from a better family, aren't you? Just wait until I catch up to you. I'll teach you a lesson. But since he couldn't catch up to her right now, Pinliang put on a flattering face. Haha, isn't my uncle and Uncle Chu's colleagues? We're old friends, so I was thinking of calling you Yao Yao. Oh, you can call me whatever you want then. Mengyao really couldn't be bothered with him anymore. Pinliang was overjoyed at Mengyao's words. Did this mean that Mengyao agreed to let him call her Yao Yao? Chapter 124. To his door, Pinliang took in a deep breath and clenched his fists as he watched Mengyao and Yushu leave. What was so bad about him? Why didn't Mengyao like him? What are you thinking about, Liangyi? Pinliang was still sulking when someone tapped him on the shoulder. He turned around to see Zhou Ruoming. Oh, Ming bro, it's nothing. Pinliang wasn't going to spill the beans. Oh, Zhou Ruoming couldn't be bothered to ask Pinliang about his stupid stuff. He had something else to talk to him about. Liangyi, I need to ask you something. That Lin Yi from your class, what's his background? Zhou Ruoming hated Lin Yi to the bone, even more so than Pinliang. He'd been so close to hitting on Tang Yun that Friday, forcing her to make a choice, but Lin Yi had ruined it. It pissed Zhou Ruoming off. But he didn't dare do anything rash. He didn't dare say anything after getting slapped by Lin Yi. What happened with Heibao Bro had left Zhou Ruoming in shock. He wanted to see how Pinliang's family was going to handle this. As a result, he didn't go after Lin Yi straight away. He came from a wealthy family as well, but his business wasn't as big as Fabai's. His brother, Zhou Ruoguang, was a gangster boss in the North District, and his underlings were ruthless. But to his disappointment, House Xiong didn't do anything after a few days, and Heibao Bro wasn't even fished out after being arrested. He was probably going to be sentenced. Zhou Ruoming was a little puzzled, Just what kind of background did Linny have? Linny, huh? Just a laborer. Pinliang said disdainfully. It never crossed his mind that his father was a laborer, and he was looking down on his father as well. Laborer? Zhou Ruoming thought that his ears were screwed up. How was it a laborer? A laborer studying in high school? What kind of joke was that? He's a transfer student. I heard he's from the mountains. He was wearing rags the first day, like a laborer. Pinliang's eyes lit up as he explained. He suddenly realized why Zhou Ruoming was asking about Lin Yi. Was he going to make a move on Lin Yi? He hadn't heard anything about Zhou Ruoming and Lin Yi. Is that so? Then why didn't you seek revenge after suffering such a huge loss a few days ago? Don't bring it up. Pinliang shook his head with a bitter smile. Pinliang's. Pinliang's Lin Pinliang's. Lin long ago Lin's Dong master. Lin Yi didn't do anything. Let's not talk about it. Pinliang shook his head with a bitter smile. I called Heibao Bro out and got scolded by my old man. You know that my old man doesn't approve of me messing around in school. I'm not a match for that Linny kid. He's from the countryside, and he's really strong. There's nothing I can do to him. Pinliang could tell that there was something going on between Zhou Ruoming and Linny, but he didn't know the details. That didn't stop him from adding fuel to the fire. He wouldn't object if Zhou Ruoming were to teach Linny a lesson. I see. So you're saying that Lin Yi doesn't have much of a background? Zhou Ruoming was afraid that Lin Yi was from a powerful family. He'd be in big trouble if he messed with Lin Yi. I don't know. Why do you keep asking about this kid? Pinliang pretended not to understand what Zhou Ruoming was getting at. Oh, nothing. I'm just curious. Curious. Zhou Ruoming said. I'm leaving now. My brothers are asking me to play basketball. Pinliang curled his lips. Curious? Curious my ass. But it seemed like Zhou Ruoming was going to make a move. That was good news. During the third period, Lin Yi and Kang Xiaobo walked out of the classroom when the dean, Wang Jifeng, walked over in a hurry. His face turned serious when he saw Lin Yi. Lin Yi, come with me. Oh, okay. Lin Yi knew that Wang Jifeng was pretending to be serious in front of Kang Xiaobo. Their relationship was a bit weird, but he couldn't expose it. He patted Kang Xiaobo's shoulder. Go to the restroom first. The dean is looking for me. Okay. Kang Xiaobo was a little worried, but he couldn't ask too much in front of the dean. He could only leave. After Kang Xiaobo left, Lin Yi asked, What's up, Dean Wang? It's like this. This is the case. Captain Yang of the police station's criminal police team is here. He has something to look for you. Wang Jifeng smiled bitterly. I think it's probably because of last week's incident. You should be careful. Don't talk nonsense. Just say that you don't know what he asks you. I will handle the other things for you on behalf of the school. Wang Jifeng took the responsibility for Lin Yi on his own accord. It seemed like he really wanted to build a good relationship with Lin Yi. Part of it was Lin Yi interrupting him the other day, but part of it was Peng Zhan. Ah, okay. Lin Yi knew that Huaijuan wasn't here because of last week's incident. It was most likely because the medicine he gave him was working, and the guy couldn't help but come looking for him. Still, the timing wasn't bad. If it were any other day, people would be suspicious if a criminal police captain came looking for a student out of the blue. But with last week's incident as a cover, no one would suspect anything. The two arrived at the dean's office, and Wang Jifeng pushed the door open. Captain Yang, I've brought Lin Yi here. But we have to make this clear. You can understand the situation, but I'll have to inform the principal if I want to take him away. Just to understand the situation. Huaijuan smiled. Don't worry, Dean Wang, he won't cause any trouble for your work. You see, maybe you should leave for now? If that's the case, you guys talk. Wang Jifeng nodded and let Lin Yi in. He then left the office and closed the door behind him. How was it? Did the prescription I gave you work? Lin Yi asked as he sat down on the sofa after Jifeng left. Eagle, you're amazing. The medicine works better than those painkillers. Huaijuan said excitedly as he punched Lin Yi. But Lin Yi dodged the punch without leaving a trace. Call me Lin Yi. Lin Yi corrected. All right, Lin Yi is Lin Yi if you say so. Huaijuan didn't mind. The name was just a code. Lin Yi, there's something I need to apologize to you for. I've shown the prescription you gave me to the doctor who treated me, but he promised that he wouldn't tell anyone about it. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.